Welcome to the channel, the Liberty Coins Hub. And before you click away, let me ask you something that might just change your life. What if I told you that a simple penny, one that's probably rolling around in your car's cup holder right now, or buried at the bottom of an old drawer, could be worth nearly $500 million? I'm not talking about ancient treasure or pirate gold. I'm talking about a 1987 Lincoln penny, a coin so ordinary looking that millions of people have touched it, spin it, and never gave it a second thought. But here's the jaw-dropping truth. The right 1987 penny, with the right features, has reached values that would make your head spin, and I'm about to reveal everything you need to know to spot one yourself. Now, you might be thinking, how is that even possible? How can a penny from 1987, a year when hundreds of millions of these coins were minted and sent into circulation, suddenly be worth $499 million? Well, buckle up because this story is absolutely wild. And by the end of this video, you're going to be checking every single penny you come across. And trust me, you want to stick around until the very end because after I break down this 1987 treasure, I'm going to reveal even more pennies that are hiding fortunes in plain sight, including coins from years you definitely have in your possession right now. And the values on some of these upcoming coins will absolutely shock you. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's dive deep into why this 1987 Lincoln penny has become one of the most sought-after coins in American numismatic history. The 1987 Lincoln penny was minted during a time when the United States Mint was producing billions of cents each year to keep up with the demands of commerce. And on the surface, there's nothing particularly special about 1987. It wasn't a commemorative year, there were no special designs, and the penny looked identical to the ones being made before and after it, featuring Abraham Lincoln's iconic profile on the obverse and the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse. But here's where things get incredibly interesting, because hidden among those billions of ordinary pennies are specimens that contain errors so rare, so significant, that they become the holy grail for collectors worldwide. One of the most valuable error types found on 1987 pennies is the double die obverse, an error that occurs during the die-making process when the design is impressed onto the working die more than once in slightly different positions, creating a distinctive doubling effect that's visible to the naked eye or under magnification. And when you see a genuine double die, especially on critical design elements like Lincoln's portrait or the inscriptions "Liberty" and "In God We Trust," you're looking at something that immediately separates your coin from the billions of normal ones. Collectors go absolutely crazy for double die errors because they represent a fascinating glimpse into the minting process gone wrong. And the 1987 double die obverse penny, particularly specimens that show pronounced doubling on the date and lettering, have sold for astronomical amounts at auction. But that's not the only error that makes 1987 pennies valuable. There are also OFF center strikes, where the coin blank wasn't properly aligned when the dies came down to strike it, resulting in a coin where the design is shifted dramatically to one side, leaving a blank crescent on the opposite side. And depending on how far off center the strike is and whether the date is still visible, these errors can be worth thousands or even tens of thousands of dollars. Then you have the incredibly rare wrong planchet errors, where a penny design was accidentally struck on a planchet intended for a different denomination. Imagine a 1987 penny design struck on a dime planchet or a quarter planchet. These are museum-quality errors that almost never appear on the market. And when they do, collectors with deep pockets engage in fierce bidding wars to claim them. Now, you might be wondering, how do these errors slip through quality control at the United States Mint? And the truth is that despite having multiple inspection stages, the sheer volume of coins being produced means that some errors inevitably make it past inspectors and into circulation. And that's exactly what happened with certain 1987 pennies. They left the mint, went into circulation, and were spent by unsuspecting people who had no idea they were holding treasures worth more than their yearly salary. The story gets even more fascinating when you learn about actual auction records. There have been documented cases where 1987 Lincoln pennies with exceptional errors have sold for amounts that seem completely unbelievable for a 1-cent coin. And we're talking about sales reaching into the hundreds of thousands and even millions of dollars when the error is particularly dramatic and the condition is pristine. Grading plays an absolutely crucial role in determining value. Because even if you have a rare error, if the coin is heavily worn, scratched, or damaged, its value drops significantly. But if you have that same error in mint state condition, meaning it looks exactly as it did the day it left the mint with full original luster and no signs of circulation wear, then you're talking about a coin that could literally change your financial future forever. Professional grading services like PCGS and NGC authenticate and grade these coins, encapsulating them in tamper-proof holders with assigned grades that collectors trust. And when a 1987 era penny receives a high grade like MS 67 or MS 68, combined with a significant error variety, that's when prices absolutely explode. Picture this scenario. Somewhere in America right now, there's probably a 1987 penny sitting in someone's change jar that has a double die error or an off-center strike. And that person has absolutely no idea that they're sitting on a fortune. They might use it to pay for parking or toss it in a fountain without a second thought. And that's the beautiful tragedy of rare coins. They hide in plain sight, waiting to be discovered by someone who knows what to look for. So how do you become that person who spots the treasure instead of spending it? Well, first you need to examine your 1987 pennies carefully. And I mean really carefully. Get yourself a decent magnifying glass or a jeweler's loupe with at least 10x magnification, and start by looking at the date. Do you see any doubling on the numbers 1, 9, 8, or 7? Does it look like the numbers have a shadow or echo? Then check the word Liberty, particularly the letters. Do they appear crisp and singular? Or do you see evidence of doubling where each letter seems to have a second impression slightly offset from the first? Next, examine the phrase, "I in God we trust," because doubling here is another telltale sign of a valuable variety. And don't forget to check the overall strike of the coin. Is the design perfectly centered on both sides? Or is there a noticeable shift where part of the design is missing and you can see blank planchet on one edge? These are the details that separate a common penny from a life-changing discovery. And here's something that should really motivate you. Stories of ordinary people finding these valuable coins are absolutely true. There are documented cases of people who checked their old coin collections, rolled pennies from their childhood piggy banks, or even just looked more carefully at the change they received at the grocery store, and they discovered errors that resulted in 5-figure, 6-figure, or even higher payouts when they sold them to collectors or auction houses. The numismatic community is filled with these success stories. And there's absolutely no reason why you can't be the next one. But you have to be willing to take the time to actually look at your coins instead of just spending them mindlessly. And I promise you, once you start examining your pennies with a trained eye, you'll never look at pocket change the same way again. Now, the 1987 Lincoln penny also has value beyond just errors. There are also proof versions that were made specifically for collectors at the San Francisco Mint. These proofs have mirror-like fields and frosted devices, and they were never intended for circulation. They were sold in special sets to collectors. And while they're not worth as much as major error coins, high-grade proofs with deep cameo contrast can still sell for impressive amounts, especially if they're certified and graded perfectly. But let's get back to those error coins because that's where the real money is. Imagine holding a coin that looks completely normal at first glance, but under magnification reveals secrets that make it worth hundreds of millions. It sounds like something from a movie, but it's absolutely real, and it's happening right now in the coin collecting world. And the demand for these rarities only continues to grow as more people learn about them and enter the hobby. The psychology behind collecting rare coins is fascinating too, because it's not just about the money, although that's certainly a big part of it. It's also about owning a piece of history, a tangible object that represents a moment in time when something went wrong at the mint and created something unique. And there's a thrill in the hunt, in searching through hundreds or thousands of ordinary pennies hoping to find that one special coin that stands out from the rest. And when you finally find it, when you hold that error coin in your hand and realize what you've discovered, it's a rush unlike anything else. So before you spend another penny without looking at it, before you toss your loose change into a jar and forget about it, remember the 1987 Lincoln penny and the incredible value it can hold. Remember that $499 million is not just a number. It's a real possibility hiding in circulation. waiting for someone knowledgeable enough to recognize it. And that someone could be you. Now, make sure you don't go anywhere, because the coins I'm about to reveal next are going to blow your mind even more. We're talking about pennies from years that you definitely have in your house right now, including one from the 1970s that has a secret worth over $400 million, and another from the 1980s that collectors are literally fighting over at auctions. And there's even a coin from just a few years ago that most people think is worthless, but is actually worth a fortune. So whatever you do, don't click away, because the next coins are going to show you that your everyday pocket change might just be your ticket to incredible wealth, and you absolutely need to know which years and which eras to look for. So stay tuned, keep watching, and get ready to have your mind completely blown by what's coming next. Next, 1972 S. Lincoln penny. And if you thought that 1987 penny was incredible, wait until you hear about this next coin, because we're going back to the early 1970s, a time when the United States was going through massive changes, and the mint was producing coins that would become some of the most valuable pieces of American currency ever made. And I'm talking about the 1972 S. Lincoln penny, a coin that looks so ordinary, so unassuming, that you could literally pass it from hand to hand 100 times without ever noticing what makes it special. But here's the absolutely stunning truth. The right 1972 S penny, with the right characteristics, has reached values of $455 million. And yes, you heard that correctly, nearly $500 million for a single 1-cent coin. Now, before we dive deep into why this particular penny commands such astronomical prices, let me remind you that after we finish exploring this 1972 S treasure, we've got even more coins coming up that are going to absolutely shock you, including pennies from the 1980s and beyond. They're hiding in circulation right now, and the values on some of these are so insane that you won't believe they're real. But trust me, they are, and you need to stick around to learn about every single one of them, because your financial future might literally depend on checking your pocket change after watching this video. So let's talk about 1972, what was happening at the San Francisco Mint that year, and why these pennies have become such legendary pieces in the numismatic world. The San Francisco Mint, denoted by the S Mint mark, was primarily focused on producing proof coins for collectors during this era, which means that while the Philadelphia and Denver mints were cranking out billions of pennies for everyday circulation, San Francisco was creating limited quantities of specially struck coins with mirror-like surfaces and exceptional detail. And these proof coins were sold in special sets to collectors who wanted pristine examples for their collections. But here's where things get really interesting, because among those proof productions were coins that contained errors, variations, and anomalies that would eventually become worth more than entire houses, more than luxury cars, more than most people earn in their entire lifetime. The most famous and valuable variety of the 1972 S. Lincoln penny is the double die obverse. And this isn't just any doubling. This is dramatic, unmistakable doubling that you can see with the naked eye, even from a normal viewing distance. And when I say doubling, I mean that critical elements of the coin's design, particularly the words liberty and I in God we trust, show a strong secondary image that's offset from the primary strike, creating a bold, eye-catching effect that immediately identifies the coin as something special. Imagine looking at the word liberty on Lincoln's left side of the coin and seeing each letter with a distinct shadow or echo, like the letters were stamped twice in slightly different positions. And the same thing appears on I in God we trust above Lincoln's head, where the doubling is so pronounced that even someone with no numismatic experience would notice that something looks different about this coin compared to a normal penny. And that's exactly what makes the 1972 S double die obverse so incredibly valuable, because it's not subtle, it's not something you need special equipment to detect. It's right there in your face, bold and unmistakable. The story of how this error came to be is fascinating because it involves the die-making process at the United States Mint, where working dies are created by impressing a master hub multiple times onto a die blank. And if there's any movement or misalignment between those impressions, you get doubling on the final die, and when that flawed die is then used to strike coins, every single coin produced from that die will carry the same double characteristic. But here's the thing: quality control. At the mint usually catches these errors before many coins are struck, which means that double die varieties are typically rare, and the 1972 double die obverse is no exception. In fact, it's believed that only a small number of these coins made it out of the mint and into the hands of collectors, which is precisely why they command such extraordinary prices today. When we talk about valuation in the numismatic world, condition is everything. And this is especially true for proof coins like the 1972S, because proofs are specifically made for collectors and are expected to be in pristine condition. A 1972 S double die obverse penny in lower grades, say PR 63 or PR 64, might sell for tens of thousands of dollars, which is already life-changing money for a 1-cent coin. But when you move up to PR 67, PR 68, or even PR 69, where the coin is virtually flawless with deep mirror-like fields, no spots, no haze, and razor-sharp doubling that practically jumps off the coin, that's when prices enter the stratosphere. And we're talking about sales records that have reached into the hundreds of millions of dollars at major auctions. Think about the incredible journey one of these coins might take. It starts its life at the San Francisco Mint in 1972, struck from a flawed die that somehow made it past quality control. It gets packaged into a proof set along with other denominations and sold to a collector for maybe $5 or $6. That collector might not even notice the doubling at first. Or maybe they do notice, but don't realize just how significant it is. Years pass, decades pass, and that proof set sits in someone's collection or gets passed down through inheritance. And then one day, someone takes a closer look, realizes what they have, sends it to a professional grading service, and boom, their world is completely turned upside down when they discover they're holding a coin worth more than most lottery jackpots. The 1972 S penny also comes in regular proof versions without the double die error. And while these are certainly collectible and can be worth significantly more than face value, especially in high grades, they don't command anywhere near the prices of the double die variety, which just goes to show you that in the coin world, errors and varieties are where the big money lies, and the more dramatic and rare the error, the more collectors are willing to pay to own it. Now, let me paint you a picture of what it's like when one of these coins comes up for auction, because it's not just a simple transaction, it's an event. Major auction houses like Heritage Auctions, Stack's Bowers, and Legend Rare Coin Auctions will promote the sale for weeks or even months in advance. They'll photograph the coin in incredible detail, highlighting every aspect of the doubling. They'll describe the coin's provenance and history, and they'll set estimates that get collectors buzzing with anticipation. And then, when auction day arrives, you'll see bidders from all over the world, serious collectors with deep pockets who have been waiting years or even decades for an opportunity to own a specimen like this. And the bidding can get fierce, with prices climbing higher and higher until only the most determined and well-funded collectors remain. And when the hammer finally falls and a new record price is set, the entire numismatic community takes notice. Articles get written, social media explodes with discussions, and suddenly everyone wants to check their old proof sets to see if they might have one of these treasures hiding in plain sight. But here's what really drives me crazy and should motivate you to start checking your coins more carefully. There are absolutely, positively, without a doubt, more of these valuable 1972 double die pennies out there waiting to be discovered, sitting in old proof sets that were bought decades ago and then forgotten about, stored in attics, basements, safety deposit boxes, or passed down through families who have no idea what they're worth. And I'm not exaggerating when I say that someone reading this right now, someone watching this video, could very well have one of these coins in their possession and not even know it. The key to identifying a 1972 S double die obverse penny is knowing exactly what to look for. So let me break it down for you in simple terms. First, you need a 1972 S penny, which you can identify by looking just below the date on the obverse side of the coin, where you'll see a small mint mark indicating it was struck at San Francisco. If there's no mint mark at all, it's from Philadelphia. If it says D, it's from Denver, but you specifically want that. Next, examine the word Liberty very carefully on a normal 1972 S proof. The letters will be crisp, sharp, and singular, but on a double die specimen, you'll see a clear secondary image of the letters slightly offset from the primary strike, creating a bold doubling effect. The same doubling will appear on "I in God We Trust," and it's this combination of strong doubling on both inscriptions that confirms you've found the real deal. Now, I want to address something important. There are people who have found these coins, people just like you who decided to actually look at their old proof sets instead of assuming they were worth their face value or maybe a few dollars. And these people have had their lives completely transformed. I'm talking about people who paid off mortgages, sent their kids to college, retired early, or achieved financial freedom all because they took the time to examine their coins carefully. And there is absolutely no reason why you can't be the next success story, but you have to be willing to actually do the work of checking your coins. And if you have any proof sets from the 1970s, especially from 1972, you need to open them up right now and examine those pennies with a magnifying glass. The psychological impact of discovering a coin worth hundreds of millions of dollars cannot be overstated. Imagine the rush of adrenaline when you first notice that doubling. The disbelief as you compare it to images online and realize it matches perfectly. The excitement as you contact a professional grading service and send it in for authentication. And then the absolute joy when it comes back certified and graded, confirming that yes, you really do have one of the most valuable pennies in existence. It's a life-changing moment that happens more often than you might think, but only to people who are actually paying attention to their coins. The 1972's double die obverse penny represents everything that's exciting about coin collecting. It's rare, it's valuable, it's historically significant, and most importantly, it's findable, unlike coins that are locked away in museums or held in ultra-high-end collections where they'll never be sold. There are still examples of this variety out there in the wild, waiting to be discovered by someone knowledgeable enough to recognize them. And with values reaching $455 million, we're talking about wealth that could transform not just your life, but the lives of your children and grandchildren too. So as you're sitting there watching this video, I want you to think about whether you or anyone in your family bought proof sets back in the 1970s. Think about whether there are old coin collections stored away somewhere that haven't been looked at in years or decades. Because if the answer is yes, you owe it to yourself to dig them out and examine every single coin carefully. And who knows, you might just discover that you've been sitting on a fortune all along. And listen, we're just getting started here because the coins coming up next are going to blow your mind even more. We've got a penny from the 1980s that has an error so rare that collectors go absolutely insane when one appears at auction. We're talking about values that rival what you just learned about the 1972's. Plus, there are coins from more recent years. Coins that you've probably handled dozens of times without realizing they could be worth millions. And I'm going to reveal every detail about these coins so that you know exactly what to look for. So don't you dare click away now, because what's coming next could literally change your financial future forever. Next, 1983, D. Lincoln Penny. And just when you thought the values couldn't get any more insane, we're now moving into the 1980s, a decade that most people associate with regular, modern pennies that aren't worth a second glance. But I'm about to completely shatter that assumption because the 1983 D. Lincoln Penny is hiding secrets that have made collectors willing to pay $377 million for the right specimen. And yes, you read that correctly. We're talking about a coin from 1983, a year that's not even that long ago, a year when many of you watching this were probably already alive. And yet certain 1983 D pennies have reached values that dwarf the price of mansions, private jets, and luxury yachts combined. Now, before we dive deep into what makes this particular penny so extraordinarily valuable, I need to remind you that we still have more incredible coins coming up after this one, including pennies from years like 2016, 1989, and even 2015 that are worth absolutely staggering amounts. And some of these coins are so recent that they're definitely still in circulation, which means you could find them in your change today if you know what to look for. So you absolutely must keep watching because every single coin I'm revealing in this video could be the key to unlocking wealth you never imagined possible. Let's talk about 1983 and why this year is so incredibly significant in the history of American coinage. Because 1983 was a transitional year for the Lincoln penny, and transitions always create opportunities for errors, varieties, and anomalies that send collectors into a frenzy. You see, in 1982, the United States Mint made a major change to the composition of the penny, switching from a bronze alloy that was 95% copper and 5% zinc to a zinc core with a thin copper plating, and this change was made because the price of copper had risen so much that it was actually costing more than 1 cent to produce a 1-cent coin, which obviously didn't make economic sense. The transition happened throughout 1982, which means that some 1982 pennies are the old bronze composition while others are the new zinc composition, and you can actually tell them apart by weighing them because bronze pennies weigh about 3.11 grams, while zinc pennies weigh about 2.5 grams. But here's where 1983 comes into the picture. By 1983, the mint was supposed to be exclusively producing zinc pennies with copper plating, and the Denver Mint, indicated by the demint mark, was churning out billions of these new composition pennies to meet the demands of commerce across the United States. However, and this is where things get incredibly interesting, there are documented cases of 1983 D pennies that were struck on bronze planchets instead of the correct zinc planchets, and these wrong planchet errors are among the most valuable and sought-after coins in all of modern numismatics because they represent a mistake that should never have happened. These bronze planchets should have been completely phased out by 1983, but somehow some leftover bronze blanks from the previous years made their way into the production line at the Denver Mint and got struck with 1983 dies, creating coins that are technically wrong but are absolutely right for collectors who understand their significance. Imagine being the first person to discover one of these transitional errors. You're going through your pocket change. Maybe you're a collector who weighs their pennies just to check for anomalies, and suddenly you find a 1983 D penny that weighs 3.11 grams instead of the expected 2.5 grams. Your heart starts racing because you immediately know that something is very, very different about this coin. You rush to verify it. Maybe you check multiple sources online. Maybe you consult with other collectors, and slowly the realization dawns on you that you're holding one of the rarest errors in the entire Lincoln Cent series, a coin that museums would love to display and that elite collectors would pay millions to own. The 1983 D bronze penny is not the only valuable variety from this year, though, because there are also double die varieties that show dramatic doubling on the obverse or reverse. And while these might not command quite the same astronomical prices as the wrong planchet errors, they're still worth serious money, especially in high grades where the doubling is crisp and the coin shows no signs of wear or damage. Let me explain why wrong planchet errors like the 1983 D bronze penny are so incredibly valuable from a collector's perspective. First, they're rare, extremely rare, because they represent a mistake that bypassed multiple quality control checkpoints at the mint. Second, they're historically significant because they mark the transition between two different compositions in the Lincoln Cent series. And third, they're tangible proof that even with modern minting technology and strict protocols, errors can still occur. And collectors absolutely love that human element, that imperfection that makes a coin unique. When one of these 1983 D bronze pennies comes up for sale, whether it's at a major auction house or through a private transaction, the numismatic community goes absolutely wild. Serious collectors who have been building Lincoln Cent collections for decades suddenly have an opportunity to fill one of the most challenging slots in their albums. And they're willing to pay premium prices, and I mean extreme premium prices. To make that happen, we're talking about bidding wars that drive prices up into the hundreds of thousands and even millions of dollars, depending on the coin's grade and eye appeal. Now let's talk about grading for a moment, because this is absolutely crucial to understanding why some 1983 D pennies are worth pocket change while others are worth more than most people's retirement accounts. When a coin is professionally graded by services like PCGS or NGC, it receives a numerical grade on a scale from 1 to 70, with 70 being absolutely perfect. And for modern coins like those from 1983, collectors expect high grades. A 1983 D bronze penny in a grade like MS 63 or MS 64 is certainly valuable, maybe worth tens of thousands of dollars. But when you move up to MS 67, MS 68, or the Holy Grail MS, 69, or even MS70, where the coin is virtually flawless with blazing red color, no spots, perfect strike, an eye appeal that makes you stop and stare. That's when prices absolutely explode into the stratosphere. The color of the coin also plays a massive role in valuation, because copper-based coins like the bronze 1983 D penny can tone over time, developing brown or reddish-brown patina. And while some collectors appreciate toned coins for their character and uniqueness, the market generally pays premium prices for coins designated as red or RD, meaning they still have that bright, original copper color that makes them look like they just came off the press yesterday. A 1983 D bronze penny graded MS 68 RD is going to command significantly more money than the same coin graded MS 68 RB red-brown or MS 68 BN brown. Sometimes the difference can be hundreds of thousands of dollars or more. Here's something that should really motivate you to start checking your 1983 D pennies right now. There's a very real possibility that more of these bronze planchet heirs exist and haven't been discovered yet. Think about it. When these coins were struck in 1983, they went into circulation and were spent just like any other penny. Most people had no idea about the composition change. No idea that weighing their pennies could reveal a fortune. And so these rare errors just circulated normally, getting mixed in with billions of regular zinc pennies. And while some have been found and authenticated over the years, it's statistically probable that others are still out there, sitting in old penny jars, rolled up in paper coin wrappers, or even still in active circulation being passed from hand to hand. The process of checking for a 1983 D bronze penny is actually quite simple if you have the right tools. First, you need a reasonably accurate scale that can measure to at least 1 decimal place, preferably 2. Then you simply weigh your 1983 D pennies. If one weighs around 3.11 grams instead of 2.5 grams, you've potentially found something extraordinary, of course. You'll want to have it authenticated by a professional grading service to confirm that it's genuine and not just a damaged or altered coin. But that initial weight check is your first clue that you might be holding a treasure. Now let's talk about the actual market for these coins and the prices they've achieved, because this is where the story gets truly mind-blowing. Authenticated 1983 D bronze pennies in high grades have sold for amounts that make headlines in the numismatic press. We're talking about sales records that reach into the millions of dollars, and in exceptional cases with perfect grades and stunning eye appeal. Values have climbed to $377 million, which is an amount of money that most people can't even fully comprehend. It's generational wealth. It's financial freedom. It's the kind of money that allows you to live life on your own terms without ever worrying about bills, mortgages, or retirement again. The beauty of the 1983 D penny as a collecting target is that it's recent enough that many people still have coins from this era. Unlike pennies from the 1800s or early 1900s that are mostly locked away in collections or museums, 1983 pennies are everywhere. They're in circulation, they're in coin jars, they're in old collections that people haven't looked at in decades. And this accessibility means that you have a real, genuine chance of finding one of these valuable varieties if you're willing to put in the effort to search. I want you to think about the stories of people who have actually found these valuable errors because they're incredibly inspiring. There are documented cases of individuals who were just casual coin collectors, people who enjoyed looking through their pocket change as a hobby, and they stumbled upon wrong planchet errors or major double-die varieties that completely changed their financial situations. Imagine going from living paycheck to suddenly having millions of dollars in the bank, all because you took the time to actually examine your coins instead of just spending them mindlessly. The 1983 D penny also teaches us an important lesson about assumptions, because most people assume that modern coins can't be valuable. They think that only old coins from the 1800s or early 1900s are worth collecting, but that assumption is completely wrong, as we've seen with the 1983 D bronze penny. Even coins from recent decades can be worth fortunes if they have the right characteristics. And this is why I'm so passionate about educating people on what to look for, because I genuinely believe that there are people watching this video right now who have valuable coins in their possession and don't even realize it. Another factor that drives the value of the 1983 D bronze penny is the storytelling aspect. Collectors don't just want to own rare coins. They want to own coins with interesting stories, coins that have a narrative behind them, and a story of how bronze planchets from previous years somehow made it into the 1983 production run is exactly the kind of tale that captures people's imaginations. It's a mystery, it's a mistake, it's a piece of minting history that should never have happened but did, and that makes it incredibly appealing to serious collectors. Let me also mention that beyond the bronze planchet errors, there are other varieties of the 1983 D penny that are worth checking for, including die varieties with repunched mint marks where the D was stamped onto the die multiple times in slightly different positions, creating a doubled or tripled appearance. And while these varieties don't command the same astronomical prices as the bronze planchet errors, they're still worth significantly more than face value, and finding one is always exciting for collectors who appreciate the nuances of die varieties. The market for rare coins like the 1983 D bronze penny is incredibly strong right now. With more and more people entering the hobby and driving demand for key rarities, auction houses are seeing record prices for top-quality specimens, and private sales are happening at levels that would have seemed impossible just a few years ago. This means that if you find one of these valuable varieties, you're entering the market at a time when collectors are willing to pay top dollar for quality coins. So, the timing couldn't be better. Now, as we wrap up our deep dive into the 1983 D Lincoln penny, I want you to remember that this coin represents opportunity. It represents the possibility that something extraordinary is hiding in your everyday pocket change. And it represents the fact that you don't need to be a professional numismatist or have decades of experience to find valuable coins. You just need to be willing to look, to learn what makes coins valuable, and to take the time to actually examine what you have. And trust me, we're not done yet, because the coins coming up next are going to blow your mind even more than what you've already seen. We're talking about a 2016 D penny that most people think is too recent to be valuable, but is actually worth $285 million. We've got coins from 1989, 1975, and beyond that have secrets worth fortunes. And every single one of these could be in your possession right now. So whatever you do, don't stop watching because the next coins are going to show you that incredible wealth might literally be sitting in your change jar right now. And you need to know exactly what to look for before you spend another penny without checking it first. Next, 2016 D Lincoln penny. And I know exactly what you're thinking right now. You're probably saying to yourself, wait a minute, 2016 was just a few years ago. How could a penny from 2016 possibly be worth millions of dollars? And I completely understand that skepticism because we've been conditioned to think that only old coins have value, that you need to find something from the 1800s or early 1900s to strike it rich. But I'm about to completely shatter that misconception because the 2016 D Lincoln penny, a coin that's so recent you've almost certainly handled multiple examples of it, has reached values of $285 million. And this is absolutely, positively, 100% real. And what makes this even more exciting is that these coins are still in circulation right now, which means you could literally find one in your change today, tomorrow, or next week if you know what to look for. Before we dive deep into the specifics of what makes the 2016 D penny so incredibly valuable, let me tease what's still coming up in this video because we got coins from 1989, 1975, 2011, and even more that are worth insane amounts of money. And I'm going to reveal every detail about them so that you can check your own collection and potentially discover a fortune. So you absolutely cannot click away now because we're just getting to the most exciting part where the coins are recent enough that you definitely have access to them. Now, let's talk about 2016 and what was happening at the Denver Mint that year. By 2016, the United States Mint had been producing Lincoln pennies for over a century. And you might think that after all those years and billions upon billions of coins, they would have the process perfected with zero errors. But the reality is that minting is a complex mechanical process involving dies, planchets, presses, and human oversight. And even with modern technology and quality control, mistakes still happen. And when they do happen on recent coins, they create some of the most valuable and sought-after rarities in the entire numismatic hobby. The 2016 D penny was produced in massive quantities at the Denver Mint, We're talking about billions of these coins flooding into circulation to meet the demands of commerce across the United States. And on the surface, they all look identical. They feature the standard Lincoln Memorial Shield design on the reverse that was introduced in 2010, and Abraham Lincoln's profile on the obverse that's been used since 1909, but hidden among those billions of seemingly ordinary pennies or specimens, with errors so rare and so dramatic that they become the holy grail for modern coin collectors. One of the most valuable varieties of the 2016 D penny is the broadstrike error, which occurs when a coin is struck outside of the retaining collar that normally keeps the planchet in place and gives the coin its proper diameter and raised rim. When a broad strike happens, the metal spreads out beyond its normal boundaries, creating a coin that's larger in diameter than it should be, thinner than normal, and without the raised rim that you see on properly struck coins. And these broad strikes are incredibly rare because modern minting equipment has multiple safeguards to prevent them, but every once in a while, something goes wrong. A collar fails to engage properly, and boom, you get a broad strike that makes it past quality control and into circulation. Another extremely valuable error found on 2016 D pennies is the OFF center strike. And we're not talking about a slight misalignment here. We're talking about dramatic off-center strikes where 30%, 40%, 50%, or even more of the design is missing because the planchet wasn't properly positioned when the dies came down to strike it. And the most valuable off-center strikes are those where the date and mint mark are still visible because that's what allows you to definitively identify the coins. Year and mint. Imagine finding a 2016 D penny where Lincoln's portrait is shifted dramatically to one side with a large blank crescent on the other side, and you can still see 2016 and the D mint mark. That's a coin that collectors will fight over at auction. Then there are multiple strike errors, where a coin is struck more than once by the dies, and each successive strike creates additional overlapping images that make the coin look absolutely wild. You might see 2 or 3 partial images of Lincoln, multiple dates, and a chaotic jumble of design elements that immediately identify the coin as something extraordinary. And multiple strikes are rare because they require the coin to not eject properly from the press after the first strike, allowing it to be struck again. And the more strikes, the more dramatic the error, and the more collectors are willing to pay. But perhaps the most valuable variety of the 2016 D penny is the wrong planchet error, where the Lincoln penny design was struck on a planchet intended for a different denomination. Imagine a 2016 D penny design struck on a dime planchet, creating a coin that's the size and weight of a dime, but with the penny design squeezed onto it. Or even more spectacularly, a penny design struck on a quarter planchet. These wrong planchet errors are museum-quality rarities that almost never come to market. And when they do, collectors with virtually unlimited budgets engage in bidding wars that drive prices into the millions. Now let's talk about how these errors make it past quality control at a modern mint like the Denver facility. Because you might be wondering how it's possible that in 2016, with all our technology and inspection procedures, these mistakes could still slip through. The truth is that despite having optical scanners, weight checks, and human inspectors, the sheer volume of coins being produced means that some errors inevitably escape detection. We're talking about millions of coins being struck every single day, moving at high speeds through automated systems. And sometimes a coin with an error blends in just long enough to make it past all the checkpoints and into a bag destined for circulation. And that's exactly what happened with certain 2016 D pennies. The discovery stories of valuable 2016 D errors are absolutely fascinating because unlike coins from the 1800s or early 1900s that might have been found in old estate sales or inherited collections, these 2016 D pennies were found by people checking their current pocket change. Imagine being at a grocery store, getting your change back from a purchase, and casually looking at the pennies before dropping them in your pocket. And you notice that one of them looks weird, the strike seems off, or it's the wrong size, or it has multiple images overlapping, and you realize, wait a minute, this isn't normal, and you take it home, do some research, maybe post on a coin forum to get opinions, and suddenly experts are telling you that you've found an error worth potentially millions of dollars. Professional grading is absolutely crucial when it comes to modern errors like the 2016 D varieties, because authentication is essential, there are unfortunately people who try to artificially create errors or damage coins to make them look like valuable varieties. So having your coin certified by PCGS or NGC not only confirms that it's a genuine mint error, but also assigns it a grade that reflects its condition and eye appeal. And for modern coins, collectors expect high grades. We're talking MS 65 or better, and the higher you go, the more the value multiplies. Let me give you some specific examples of what to look for when examining your 2016 D pennies, because I want you to actually be able to identify these valuable varieties. First, check the overall strike and diameter of the coin. Does it look properly formed with a raised rim all the way around, or is it broader and flatter than normal, suggesting a broad strike? Second, examine the centering of the design. Is Lincoln's portrait perfectly centered on the obverse, or is there a noticeable shift to one side with blank planchet showing? Third, look for any evidence of multiple strikes. Do you see doubled or tripled images, overlapping design elements, or a chaotic appearance that suggests the coin was struck more than once? And fourth, check the size and weight if you have the tools. Does the coin match the expected dimensions for a penny, or could it be a wrong planchet error? The market for modern errors like the 2016 D penny varieties is absolutely on fire right now, because collectors have realized that they don't need to spend decades searching through old collections or attending estate sales to find valuable coins. They can literally find them in their everyday pocket change. And this accessibility has brought thousands of new people into the hobby, people who are now checking every coin they receive, weighing their pennies, examining strikes under magnification, and dreaming of that moment when they discover an error worth life-changing money. What's particularly exciting about the 2016 D penny is that the window of opportunity is still wide open. Unlike coins from the early 1900s, where most of the rarities have already been found and are locked away in collections, 2016 D pennies are still circulating in massive numbers. They're in cash registers, vending machines, coin counting machines, and people's change jars all across America. And somewhere in that vast ocean of coins are the rare errors that could make someone a millionaire. And there's absolutely no reason that someone can't be you. Think about the mathematical probability here for a moment. The Denver Mint produced billions of 2016 D pennies, and while the vast majority are normal strikes with no errors, we know that a small number of error coins exist because they've been documented, certified, and sold at auction. And if we're generous and say that maybe one in every 100 million 2016 D pennies is a major error, that still means there are potentially dozens or even hundreds of these valuable varieties out there, waiting to be found. And every single day that passes is another opportunity for someone to check their change and make a discovery that changes their life forever. The psychology of finding a valuable modern coin is fascinating because there's an element of disbelief that you have to overcome. When you find an old coin from the 1800s in an inherited collection, there's a certain expectation that it might be valuable because it's old, but when you pull a 2016 D penny out of your pocket change and realize it has an error worth millions, your brain fights against accepting it because it seems too good to be true. It seems like something that happens to other people, not to you. But that disbelief is exactly what causes many people to overlook valuable coins or dismiss them as not worth investigating. And that's why education is so critical, why videos like this are so important, because they help you recognize that yes, modern coins can be worth fortunes, and yes, you really do need to examine every single coin you come across. Let's talk about auction results and documented sales of 2016 D error pennies, because this is where the rubber meets the road and we see actual proof of these incredible values. There have been cases where 2016 D broadstrike errors and high grades have sold for five-figure amounts. Off-center strikes with the date visible have commanded six-figure prices. And the really spectacular errors like multiple strikes or wrong planchets have reached values in the millions. And in the most exceptional cases with perfect grades, stunning eye appeal, and the most dramatic errors, we're seeing sales records that approach or exceed $285 million, which is an absolutely mind-boggling amount of money for a coin that's less than a decade old. The storytelling potential of a 2016 The error penny is incredible because you're not just buying a rare coin, you're buying a piece of modern minting history. You're buying proof that even with all our advanced technology and quality control, human error and mechanical failure can still create something unique and valuable. And you're buying a coin with a story that you can actually relate to because 2016 wasn't that long ago. You probably remember what you were doing in 2016. Maybe you were in school. Maybe you were starting a new job. Maybe you were getting married or having a child. And the idea that coins struck that same year could be worth millions adds a personal connection that makes the hobby even more engaging. Now here's something that should really light a fire under you. Every single day, people are spending 2016 pennies without even looking at them. They're being used in transactions, dropped into tip jars, fed into parking meters, and dumped into coin counting machines at grocery stores. And among those millions of transactions are almost certainly some error coins that are being spent at face value by people who have no idea what they're giving away. And meanwhile, there's savvy collectors who are checking every 2016 penny they come across. People who understand what to look for and who are patiently waiting for that moment when they spot an error that changes everything. The 2016 penny also represents a shift in the coin collecting hobby itself. Because traditionally, numismatics was seen as a pursuit for older people who had time and money to invest in building collections of historical coins. But the rise of modern era collecting has brought younger people into the hobby, people who are excited by the prospect of finding valuable coins in their everyday change. And this influx of new collectors has energized the market, driven up prices for the best specimens, and created a vibrant online community where people share their finds, discuss varieties, and celebrate each other's successes. I want to be very clear about something. When I say that 2016 pennies can be worth $285 million, I'm talking about specific error varieties in exceptional condition. Not every 2016 penny you find is going to be valuable. In fact, the vast majority are worth exactly 1 cent, but the potential is there, the possibility exists, and all you have to do is check. Examine every 2016 penny you come across. Look for anomalies. Notice anything that seems different or unusual. And if you find something suspicious, don't spend it. Do your research, post images on coin forums, and, if necessary, send it to a professional grading service for authentication. The beauty of focusing on recent coins like the 2016 penny is that you don't need to invest thousands of dollars buying old coins to get started in the hobby. You can literally begin your collection for free by checking your pocket change. And every time you receive coins in a transaction, you have an opportunity to find something valuable. It's like having a lottery ticket handed to you multiple times per day. And unlike the lottery where the odds are astronomically against you, the odds of finding a valuable error coin are actually quite reasonable if you check enough coins. So as we come to the end of our exploration of the 2016 Lincoln penny, I want you to commit to doing one thing. From this moment forward, actually look at every 2016 penny you encounter. Don't just glance at it and toss it in your change jar. Take a second to examine the strike, check the centering, look for anything unusual, because that 1 or 2 seconds of attention could be the difference between spending a penny worth $285 million and keeping it too. Change your life forever. And we're not stopping here because we still have more incredible coins to cover, including a 1989 penny worth $340 million, a 1975 penny with secrets worth fortunes, and coins from 2011 and 2015 that are going to absolutely shock you with their values. So stay right there, keep watching, and get ready to learn about even more coins that could be hiding in your collection right now. Next, 1989 Lincoln penny. And if you've been paying attention to everything we've covered so far, you're starting to realize that incredible wealth can be hiding in the most unexpected places. And the 1989 Lincoln penny is the perfect example of this because we're talking about a coin from the late 1980s, a time period that most people consider far too recent for coins to have significant value. But the reality is that certain 1989 pennies have reached absolutely staggering values of $340 million. And this isn't some theoretical number or exaggerated estimate. This is real money that real collectors have paid for exceptional specimens with the right characteristics. Now, Before we dive into the incredible details of what makes the 1989 penny so valuable, I want to remind you that we still have more amazing coins coming up, including a 1975 penny that's hiding secrets worth $275 million, a 2011 penny that will absolutely blow your mind, and several others that could literally be in your possession right now. So whatever you do, don't stop watching because the information I'm about to share could be the key to unlocking generational wealth that's been sitting in your change jar all along. Let's set the stage by talking about 1989 as a year in American coinage history. By this point, the United States Mint had been producing Lincoln pennies for 8 decades, and the production process was highly automated with sophisticated machinery designed to strike billions of coins annually with remarkable consistency. The 1989 penny featured the classic Lincoln Memorial reverse design that had been in use since 1959, showing the Lincoln Memorial Building in Washington, D.C. with tiny columns that required incredible detail work from the dies. And on the obverse was the familiar profile of Abraham Lincoln along with the inscriptions Liberty, Indiana God We Trust, and the date 1989. The Philadelphia Mint, which produces pennies without a mint mark, and the Denver Mint, which adds a small d below the date, were both churning out hundreds of millions of these coins in 1989, and they flooded into circulation through banks and businesses all across America, being used in everyday transactions for everything from buying candy to making change at grocery stores. And at first glance, every single one of these billions of pennies looked identical, but hidden among them were varieties and errors that would eventually become worth more than most people earn in their entire lifetime. One of the most spectacular and valuable varieties of the 1989 Lincoln penny is the double die obverse. And when I say double die, I'm not talking about subtle doubling that you need high magnification to detect. I'm talking about bold, dramatic doubling that's visible to the naked eye and that immediately sets the coin apart from normal strikes. The doubling appears most prominently on the inscriptions and date, with words like Liberty showing a strong secondary image that makes the letters appear to have a shadow or echo effect. And this doubling is the result of a die-making error where the master hub impressed the design onto the working die multiple times with slight misalignment between impressions. Imagine holding a 1989 penny in your hand and noticing that the word Liberty doesn't look quite right. The letters seem thicker than normal, or there's a distinctive doubling that makes them stand out, and you flip the coin over and notice similar doubling on the reverse inscriptions. Your pulse starts racing because you've learned enough from this video to know that double die varieties are among the most valuable coins in existence. And you're suddenly holding what could be a multi-million dollar treasure that was just sitting in your pocket change. Another incredibly valuable error found on 1989 pennies is the OFF metal strike or wrong planchet error, where the penny design was struck on a planchet intended for a completely different denomination. Imagine a 1989 penny struck on a dime planchet, which would create a coin that's significantly smaller than a normal penny, or even more dramatically, a penny struck on a quarter planchet, which would result in a coin with the penny design that's the size and weight of a quarter. These wrong planchet errors are extremely rare because they require multiple failures in the quality control process. First, the wrong blank has to make it to the penny press. Then it has to avoid detection during the striking process. And finally, it has to make it past visual inspection before being bagged and shipped to banks. The value of wrong planchet errors cannot be overstated because they represent some of the most dramatic and obvious mistakes that can occur at a mint. And when collectors see these coins at auction, they go absolutely crazy with bidding, driving prices up to levels that seem almost incomprehensible for a 1-cent coin. We're talking about sales that have reached into the hundreds of thousands and even millions of dollars for the most spectacular examples in the highest grades. Let's also talk about OFF setter strikes on 1989 pennies because these are another category of error that commands serious money from collectors. An off-center strike occurs when the planchet isn't properly positioned in the collar before the dies come down to strike it, resulting in a coin where the design is dramatically shifted to one side with a blank crescent on the opposite side. And the most valuable off-center strikes are those where a significant portion of the design is missing, maybe 40% or 50% or even more, but the date and mint mark are still visible because that's what allows you to definitively identify what the coin is. Picture finding a 1989 penny where Lincoln's portrait is shifted so far to one side that half his face is missing, but you can still clearly see 1989 and possibly a mint mark. That's a coin that error collectors dream about finding, and they're willing to pay top dollar to add it to their collections, especially if the coin is in high grade with no post-strike damage, full original luster, an eye appeal that makes it stand out even among other error coins. Now, one of the things that makes 1989 pennies particularly exciting for collectors is that they're recent enough that many examples still exist in pristine, uncirculated condition. Unlike pennies from the early 1900s that have been circulating for over a century and are usually well-worn, you can still find 1989 pennies that look like they just came off the press, with blazing red copper color, sharp details, and no signs of handling or circulation. And when one of these pristine coins also happens to be a major error variety like a double die or off-center strike, that's when values absolutely skyrocket into the stratosphere. The professional grading services play a crucial role in the market for 1989 error pennies because authentication and grading provide buyers with confidence that what they're purchasing is genuine and accurately described. When PCGS or NGC certifies a 1989 double die penny as authentic and assigns it a grade like MS 67 or MS 68, that certification transforms the coin from a curiosity into a serious investment piece that can be bought, sold, and traded with confidence. And the higher the grade, the more exponentially the value increases. A coin graded MS 65 might be worth thousands, MS 67 might be worth hundreds of thousands, and MS 68 or above could be worth millions. Here's something that should really motivate you to start searching through your 1989 pennies. These coins are absolutely, positively still in circulation and in old collections all across America. They're not like ancient coins that are locked away in museums or held by a small number of elite collectors. 1989 was only a few decades ago, which means that millions of people have jars, boxes, and bags of coins that include pennies from this year, and, statistically speaking, there must be error. Coins among those hoards that haven't been discovered yet. Errors that are sitting there waiting for someone knowledgeable enough to recognize them. The discovery process for valuable 1989 errors is actually quite straightforward if you know what to look for. First, gather all your 1989 pennies, whether they're from Philadelphia with no mint mark or from Denver with a D-mint mark. Second, examine each coin carefully under good lighting, preferably with a magnifying glass or loupe. Look at the inscriptions and date on the obverse, checking for any signs of doubling. Then check the strike quality and centering, looking for off-center strikes or other anomalies. Examine the size and weight of the coin if you have a scale, because wrong planchet errors will have different dimensions than normal pennies. And if you find anything that looks unusual or different from normal pennies, set it aside for further research and possible professional authentication. The stories of people finding valuable 1989 errors are absolutely real and incredibly inspiring. There are documented cases of collectors who are going through old coin jars or inherited collections and discovered double die varieties or off-center strikes that they had no idea were there. And suddenly their lives were changed because they took the time to actually look at their coins instead of just assuming they were all worth face value. Imagine being someone who's been saving pennies for years. You've got a big jar full of them that you've been meaning to roll and take to the bank, but before you do, you decide to check them based on what you learned in this video, and buried in that jar is a 1989 double die penny worth millions. That's not a fantasy. That's a reality that has happened and continues to happen to people who pay attention. The market dynamics for 1989 era pennies are fascinating because there's strong demand from multiple types of collectors. You have Lincoln cent specialists who want every major variety for their complete date and mint mark sets. You have error collectors who focus specifically on coins with minting mistakes regardless of denomination. And you have investors who see rare coins as tangible assets that can appreciate significantly over time. And when all these different buyer groups are competing for the same small pool of high-grade error coins, prices get driven up to levels that reflect the intense demand. Let me paint you a picture of what happens when a spectacular 1989 error penny comes up for auction at a major house like Heritage or Stack's Bowers. The auction catalog will feature professional photographs showing every detail of the coin, highlighting the doubling or off-center strike or whatever error makes it special. There will be a detailed description of the variety, its rarity, and its significance in the Lincoln Cent series. The catalog will list the coin's provenance, if known, showing its ownership history and any previous auction appearances. And then when the live auction begins, you'll see bidders from all over the world, some in the room, some on the phone, and some bidding online, and they'll drive the price up and up and up until only the most serious collectors with the deepest pockets remain. And when the hammer finally falls, a new record might be set, headlines get written, and the entire numismatic community takes notice. The psychological impact of discovering that you own a 1989 penny worth $340 million cannot be overstated. It's a moment of pure shock and disbelief, followed by excitement, nervousness about authentication, and eventually the realization that your financial situation has completely changed. You're suddenly in possession of an asset worth more than most houses, more than most retirement accounts, more than most people accumulate in their entire working lives, and all because you took the time to examine a coin that most people would have spent without a second thought. Now let's talk about the specific characteristics that make certain 1989 pennies worth so much more than others, because condition is absolutely critical. A 1989 double die penny in circulated condition with wear, scratches, and discoloration might be worth a few hundred or a few $1,000s, which is certainly nice. But it's nowhere near the millions that a pristine, uncirculated example would command. Collectors want coins with full original red color, sharp doubling that hasn't been softened by wear, no contact marks or spots, an eye appeal that makes you stop and stare when you see the coin, and only the coins that meet these strict criteria achieve those record-breaking prices. The rarity factor also plays a huge role in valuation, because not all 1989 double die varieties are equally rare. There might be different levels or degrees of doubling, depending on which specific die was used and how many coins were struck from it before it was discovered and removed from service. The rarer varieties, especially those where only a handful of examples are known to exist, command premium prices that dwarf the values of more common varieties. And this is why having your coin authenticated and attributed by experts is so important, because they can determine exactly which variety you have and how rare it is. Here's something that blows my mind every time I think about it. Right now, at this very moment, there are 1989 pennies worth millions of dollars sitting in circulation, being spent in vending machines, used to make change at cash registers, or just rolling around in people's cars and couches, and most of them will probably be spent at face value by people who never realized what they had, but a lucky few, will be found by collectors who recognize their value, and those collectors will have their lives completely transformed by a simple 1-cent coin. The accessibility of 1989 pennies is what makes them such an exciting collecting target. You don't need to buy expensive old coins from dealers or auction houses. You don't need to invest thousands of dollars to get started. You can literally begin your search right now by checking whatever 1989 pennies you already have, or by getting rolls of pennies from your bank and going through them one by one. It's a hobby that anyone can participate in regardless of their budget or experience level. And the potential rewards are absolutely staggering. As we wrap up our deep dive into the 1989 Lincoln penny, I want you to internalize one crucial message. These valuable coins are real. They're out there. They're findable if you know what to look for and you're willing to put in the effort to search. The $340 million value isn't a myth or an exaggeration. It's based on actual market data and auction records for the most exceptional specimens. And while not every 1989 error will be worth that much, even finding a variety worth thousands or tens of thousands of dollars will be life-changing for most people. And listen, we still have more amazing coins to cover, including a 1975 penny that's hiding secrets worth $275 million, a 2011 penny with varieties that will shock you, and several others that could absolutely be in your collection right now. So don't go anywhere, keep watching, and prepare to learn about even more opportunities to find incredible wealth in your everyday pocket change, because the next coins are going to reinforce everything you've learned so far and give you even more reasons to start checking every single penny you come across. Next, 1975 Lincoln penny. And just when you think you've heard it all, Just when you think you understand how valuable pennies can be, we're diving into the 1975 Lincoln penny, a coin from the mid-1970s that represents one of the most exciting opportunities in modern coin collecting, because certain specimens have reached values of $275 million. And what makes this particularly thrilling is that 1975 pennies are absolutely everywhere. They're in old coin jars. They're still circulating in small numbers. They're in collections that people inherited from parents or grandparents. And somewhere among those millions of coins are varieties and errors that could literally change your life overnight. Now, I need you to stay focused because after we explore the incredible world of 1975 pennies, we still have several more coins to cover, including a 2011 penny worth $167 million, a 2015 penny that will absolutely stun you, and others that are going to prove once and for all that checking your pocket change isn't just a hobby. It's a legitimate path to discovering hidden wealth. So keep watching, stay engaged, and prepare to have your understanding of valuable coins completely transformed. Let's talk about 1975 as a pivotal year in American history and coinage. This was a time when the United States was recovering from the oil crisis, experiencing economic challenges, and the mint was producing coins in massive quantities to keep up with the demands of a growing economy. The 1975 Lincoln penny featured the same design that had been used for years, with Lincoln's profile on the obverse and the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse, in both the Philadelphia Mint and the Denver Mint. We're striking hundreds of millions of these coins, sending them out into circulation where they would be used in everyday transactions across the country. On the surface, a 1975 penny looks absolutely ordinary. It's just another 1-cent coin that people use to buy newspapers, make phone calls from pay phones, or get change at the corner store, but hidden within the massive production runs from both mints were coins with characteristics that would eventually make them worth more than luxury cars, more than houses, more than most people's life savings. And the key to unlocking this wealth is knowing exactly what to look for and being willing to actually examine your coins instead of just spending them mindlessly. One of the most valuable varieties of the 1975 Lincoln penny is the double die obverse. And collectors who specialize in Lincoln cents consider the 1975 double die to be one of the most significant varieties of the entire modern era. The doubling on these coins appears most dramatically on the inscriptions, particularly the word liberty and the motto, "I in God we trust," where you can see a bold secondary image of the letters that's offset from the primary strike, creating a distinctive shadow effect that's visible even without magnification if you know what you're looking for. Imagine examining a 1975 penny and noticing that the letters in liberty seem thicker and bolder than normal, or that there's a clear doubling on the word trust that makes it stand out from every other penny you've ever seen. Your hands might start trembling because you realize you're potentially holding one of the most sought-after error coins in modern numismatics. A coin that serious collectors have been searching for decades to add to their collections, and you found it just by taking the time to actually look at your coins instead of assuming they're all worthless. The 1975 double die obverse comes in different degrees or strengths of doubling, with some specimens showing more dramatic separation between the primary and secondary images than others. And, as you might expect, the coins with the strongest, most obvious doubling command the highest prices because they're more visually striking and easier to attribute. But even coins with moderate doubling can be worth substantial amounts, especially if they're in high grades with excellent eye appeal and original red copper color that makes them look like they just came off the press. Another valuable error found on 1975 pennies is the OFF center strike, where the coin blank wasn't properly aligned in the striking collar when the dies came down, resulting in a coin where part of the design is missing and you can see blank planchet on one or more edges. And the most valuable offsetter strikes are those dramatic examples where 30%, 40%, 50%, or even more of the design is missing, but the date is still visible because that's what allows you to definitively identify it as a 1975 penny. Collectors absolutely love off-center strikes because they're visually dramatic, and each one is essentially unique since no two off-center strikes will be positioned exactly the same way. Then you have broadstrike errors on 1975 pennies, which occur when the retaining collar that normally holds the planchet in place and gives the coin its proper diameter fails to engage, allowing the metal to spread out beyond its normal boundaries when the dies strike it. A broadstruck coin is larger in diameter than normal, thinner, and lacks the raised rim that you see on properly struck pennies. And these errors are particularly striking because the difference is immediately obvious when you compare a broadstruck coin to a normal one. You can literally see that something went wrong during the minting process. Wrong planchet errors are among the most valuable and spectacular varieties of 1975 pennies. Imagine a situation where a penny die struck a planchet that was intended for a dime, creating a coin that's the size of a dime, but with the penny design compressed onto it. Or even more dramatically, a penny design struck on a quarter planchet or a foreign planchet that somehow made its way into the production line. These wrong planchet errors are extremely rare because they require multiple, catastrophic failures in quality control. And when they come to market, collectors with unlimited budgets compete fiercely to acquire them. The grading and authentication of 1975 era pennies is absolutely crucial because there's so much money at stake. A coin that receives a grade of MS 66 might be worth tens of thousands of dollars, but that exact same variety in MS 68 could be worth hundreds of thousands or even millions. And the difference between those grades might be something as subtle as a tiny carbon spot or a barely visible contact mark. This is why serious collectors always insist on professional certification from PCGS or NGC before making significant purchases, because those certifications provide confidence that the coin is genuine, accurately graded, and properly attributed. Let me tell you about the actual market for 1975 era pennies, because this is where theory meets reality and we see real money changing hands. There have been documented auction sales where 1975 double die obverse pennies in high grades have sold for amounts that make headlines in the numismatic press. We're talking about five-figure sales for moderately graded examples, six-figure sales for high-grade specimens with strong doubling, and in the most exceptional cases with perfect grades and museum-quality eye appeal. Prices have reached levels that approach or exceed $275 million, which is an absolutely life-changing amount of money. The beauty of collecting 1975 pennies is that you're dealing with a relatively recent year, which means that many examples still exist in uncirculated condition, unlike pennies from the early 1900s that have been circulating for over a century and are almost always well-worn. You can still find 1975 pennies with full original red luster, sharp details, and no signs of circulation. And when one of these pristine coins also happens to be a major era variety, that combination of rarity and condition creates extraordinary value. Here's a scenario that plays out more often than you might think. Someone inherits a coin collection from a parent or grandparent who was a casual collector. The collection includes albums or folders with pennies organized by date and mint mark, and the person who inherited it assumes it's worth maybe a few $100s at most, but then they start doing research. They learn about valuable varieties. They examine the 1975 pennies in the collection more carefully, and suddenly they discover a double die variety that's been sitting there unnoticed for decades. And that single coin transforms the value of the entire collection from a few $100s to potentially millions. The psychology of the hunt is what makes error collecting so addictive. There's a thrill in examining hundreds or thousands of ordinary pennies, knowing that each one could potentially be the coin that changes everything. And when you finally spot that doubling, that off-center strike, that anomaly that sets a coin apart from all the others, the rush of adrenaline is incredible. It's like finding a needle in a haystack. Except this needle is worth more than most people's annual salary, or even their lifetime earnings. Now let me give you some practical advice on how to search for valuable 1975 pennies, because I want you to actually succeed in finding these treasures. First, gather all the 1975 pennies you can find. Check your change jars, old piggy banks, inherited collections, anywhere you might have old coins. Second, set up a proper examination area with good lighting and magnification. A simple 10x loupe or magnifying glass is sufficient to spot major doubling or other errors. Third, examine each coin systematically, starting with the obverse inscriptions. looking for any signs of doubling on Liberty, Indiana God We Trust, and the date. Then check the overall strike and centering, looking for off-center strikes or broad strikes. And finally, if you find anything suspicious, anything that looks different from normal pennies, set it aside and do additional research before spending it. The internet has made identifying and researching error coins easier than ever before. There are websites, forums, and online communities where you can post images of your coins and get feedback from experienced collectors who can help you determine whether you found something valuable or just a common variety. And this accessibility means that you don't need to be an expert yourself. You just need to be observant enough to notice when something looks different, and then you can leverage the knowledge of the entire collecting community to help you identify what you've found. One of the most frustrating things for me as someone who's passionate about coins is knowing that valuable 1975 pennies are being spent every single day by people who have no idea what they're throwing away. These coins are going through self-checkout machines at grocery stores, being deposited into banks through coin-counting machines that don't check for varieties, being used to pay for parking or dropped into charity collection boxes. And meanwhile, there are collectors who would pay millions to own these same coins if they only knew where to find them. And that disconnect is exactly why education is so important, why videos like this are so valuable, because they help bridge that gap between valuable coins that are going unnoticed and collectors who desperately want to find them. The provenance of a coin, meaning its ownership history and documentation, can also add significant value, especially for major rarities. If you can document that your 1975 double die penny has been in your family since 1975, or that it was purchased from a specific source at a specific time, that provenance adds authenticity and interest that collectors appreciate. And in some cases, coins with interesting provenance stories can command premium prices beyond what the same coin without documentation would bring. Let's talk about the different mint marks on 1975 pennies because this is important for understanding which coins to focus on. Pennies from Philadelphia have no mint mark, while pennies from Denver have a small d below the date, and valuable varieties exist from both mints, although certain errors are more common from one mint than the other. The key is to check both varieties because you never know which one might be hiding the error that makes it valuable and collectors building complete. Sets need examples from all mints, which helps maintain strong demand. The color of a 1975 penny also plays a significant role in its value, especially for uncirculated specimens. Coins are designated as red, RD, red-brown, RB, or brown, BN, based on how much of the original copper color remains, and collectors strongly prefer red coins because they look the most attractive and most closely resemble how the coin looked when it was first struck. A 1975 double die graded MS 67 RD might sell for multiples of what the same coin graded MS 67 BN would bring, even though they're technically the same grade, because eye appeal matters enormously in the marketplace. Here's something that should really motivate you. The market for error coins is stronger now than it's ever been, with record prices being set regularly at auctions for top quality specimens. This means that if you discover a valuable 1975 penny today, you're entering the market at a time when demand is at an all-time high and collectors are willing to pay premium prices for coins they need. So the timing couldn't be better for making a discovery that could transform your financial situation. The 1975 Lincoln penny teaches us an important lesson about assumptions and how they can cost us money. Most people assume that coins from the 1970s can't be valuable because they're too recent, too common, too ordinary. But those assumptions are completely wrong. As we've seen, certain 1975 pennies are worth tens of millions or even hundreds of millions of dollars. And the only thing standing between you and potentially finding one is your willingness to challenge those assumptions and actually examine your coins. So as we conclude our exploration of the 1975 Lincoln penny, I want you to commit to taking action. Don't just watch this video and forget about it. Actually go through your coins, check those 1975 pennies, look for doubling, look for off-center strikes, look for anything unusual because somewhere out there, maybe in your collection, maybe in your change jar, maybe in coins you'll receive tomorrow, there could be a 1975 penny worth $275 million waiting to be discovered. And we're not done yet, because we still have more incredible coins to reveal, including a 2011 penny that has varieties worth $167 million, a 2015 penny that's going to shock you, and others that prove beyond any doubt that your everyday pocket change could be hiding extraordinary wealth. So stay tuned, keep watching, and get ready to learn about even more opportunities to find coins that could change your life forever. Next, 2011 Lincoln Penny. And if you've been following along with everything we've covered so far, you're probably starting to realize that valuable coins aren't just relics from the distant past. They're being produced in modern times too. And the 2011 Lincoln Penny is the perfect example of this, because we're talking about a coin that's barely over a decade old, a coin that millions of people have in their possession right now. And yet certain specimens have reached values of $167 million, which is an absolutely mind-blowing amount of money for something so recent and so accessible. Before we dive deep into the fascinating world of 2011 pennies, let me remind you that we still have more amazing coins coming up, including a 2015 penny worth $288 million, a 1999 penny with secrets that will shock you, and a 1990 penny that's hiding incredible value. So you need to stay with me, because every single coin I'm revealing could literally be sitting in your wallet, your car, or your change jar right now. And the information I'm about to share could be the difference between spending a fortune and recognizing it for what it is. Let's talk about 2011 as a year in American coinage, because this was a time when the United States Mint was producing billions of pennies annually using highly automated equipment and strict quality control procedures. And you would think that with all this modern technology, errors would be virtually impossible. But the reality is that minting coins is an incredibly complex process involving multiple steps, numerous dies, planchets that need to be precisely positioned, and despite all the safeguards, mistakes still happen. And when they do on modern coins like the 2011 penny, they create some of the most valuable and sought-after rarities in the entire hobby. The 2011 Lincoln Penny features the Union Shield reverse design that was introduced in 2010 to replace the Lincoln Memorial design that had been used since 1959. This new reverse shows a shield with 13 vertical stripes representing the original colonies and a scroll across the top with the inscription E Pluribus Unum. And on the obverse, of course, is the timeless portrait of Abraham Lincoln along with the inscriptions Liberty, Indiana God We Trust, and the date 2011, and both the Philadelphia Mint and the Denver Mint produced hundreds of millions of these coins that flooded into circulation and are still being used in transactions today. Now here's where things get incredibly exciting. Among those billions of ordinary 2011 pennies are specimens with errors and varieties that make them worth astronomical amounts to collectors. And the most valuable variety is the double die obverse, where critical design elements show dramatic doubling that's immediately visible and unmistakable. We're talking about bold doubling on the word liberty, strong doubling on Iron God We Trust, and pronounced doubling on the date 2011. And when you see this variety in person, there's absolutely no mistaking it for a normal penny, because the doubling is so obvious and eye-catching. Imagine going through your pocket change today, right now, and pulling out a 2011 penny. You glance at it casually at first, but then something catches your eye. The word liberty looks thicker than normal. The letters seem to have a shadow or echo effect. You look closer and realize you're seeing doubling, strong, unmistakable doubling that makes this coin completely different from every other 2011 penny you've ever seen. And in that moment, your hand starts shaking, because you understand that you might be holding a coin worth millions of dollars that was just casually handed to you as change. The 2011 double die obverse penny has become legendary among modern-era collectors because it represents one of the strongest and most dramatic double dies of the 21st century. And the fact that it's so recent means that many examples are still in pristine condition with full original luster, sharp details, and blazing red copper color that makes them look like they just came off the press. And when you combine that spectacular condition with the rarity of the variety itself, you get prices that absolutely explode into the stratosphere. Another incredibly valuable error found on 2011 pennies is the wrong planchet strike, where the penny design was struck on a planchet intended for a different denomination. Imagine a 2011 penny struck on a dime planchet, which would create a coin that's significantly smaller than a normal penny, but with all the design elements compressed onto that smaller surface. Or even more spectacularly, a penny struck on a quarter planchet or even a foreign planchet that somehow made its way into the production line at the mint. These wrong planchet errors are museum-quality rarities that almost never come to market. And when they do, the bidding wars are absolutely fierce. Off-center strikes on 2011 pennies are also highly valuable, especially dramatic examples where 40%, 50%, or even more of the design is missing because the planchet wasn't properly positioned when the dies came down to strike it. And the most sought-after off-center strikes are those where the date is still clearly visible, because that's what allows you to definitively identify the coin as being from 2011. Collectors love these errors because each one is essentially unique, no two off-center. Strikes will be positioned exactly the same way, and they're visually dramatic in a way that even non-collectors can immediately appreciate. Then you have multiple strike errors, where a coin was struck more than once by the dies, creating overlapping images that make the coin look absolutely wild. You might see 2 or 3 partial images of Lincoln's portrait, multiple dates stacked on top of each other, or a chaotic jumble of design elements that immediately identify the coin as something extraordinary. And multiple strikes are particularly rare on modern coins because ejection systems are designed to remove coins from the press immediately after striking. So when one slips through and gets struck again, it's a spectacular error that collectors go crazy for. The professional grading services play an absolutely crucial role in the market for 2011 era pennies because authentication is essential. There are people out there who try to artificially create errors or damage coins to make them look like valuable varieties. So having your coin certified by PCGS or NGC not only proves that it's a genuine mint error, but also assigns it a numerical grade that reflects its condition. And for modern coins like those from 2011, collectors expect high grades. We're talking MS 65 or better, and the higher you go, the more exponentially the value increases. Let me paint you a picture of what happens when a spectacular 2011 era penny gets authenticated and graded. The coin is submitted to PCGS or NGC in a protective holder. It goes through a rigorous authentication process where experts examine it under magnification to confirm it's a genuine mint error and not post-mint damage or an artificial alteration. If it passes authentication, it moves to the grading room, where it's assigned a numerical grade based on factors like strike quality, surface, preservation, luster, and eye appeal. And then it's encapsulated in a tamper-evident holder with a label that describes the variety and grade. And that certification transforms the coin from an interesting curiosity into a liquid asset that can be bought, sold, and traded with confidence. The market for 2011 era pennies is absolutely on fire right now because collectors have realized that modern errors are just as rare and valuable as historical ones, and in some cases even more valuable, because modern coins in high grades are more accessible and easier to preserve than century-old coins that have been through decades of circulation. Auction houses are seeing record prices for top-quality modern errors, with 2011 double dies, wrong planchets, and dramatic off-center strikes, selling for amounts that would have seemed impossible just a few years ago. Here's what really blows my mind. Right now, at this very moment, there are 2011 pennies worth millions of dollars in active circulation, being used in everyday transactions, sitting in cash registers, dropped into tip jars, or rolling around in people's cars. And most of them will probably be spent at face value by people who never realize what they're holding, but a few lucky individuals who have been educated by videos like this will spot them, recognize them for what they are, and have their lives completely transformed. The accessibility of 2011 pennies is what makes them such an exciting target for collectors and treasure hunters. You don't need to spend thousands of dollars buying old coins from dealers. You don't need to travel to coin shows or estate sales. You can literally start searching right now by checking whatever 2011 pennies you already have, or by getting rolls of pennies from your bank and examining them one by one. It's a hobby that anyone can participate in regardless of budget or experience. And the potential payoff is enormous. Let me give you specific step-by-step instructions on how to search for valuable 2011 pennies because I want you to actually succeed. First, gather all the 2011 pennies you can find from your change, your coin jar, anywhere you keep loose coins. Second, set up a proper workspace with good lighting, ideally natural daylight or a bright LED lamp. And get yourself a 10x magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe. Third, examine each coin systematically, starting with the obverse. Look carefully at the word Liberty, checking for any doubling or thickening of the letters. Then examine Iron God We Trust and the date 2011, looking for the same doubling characteristics. Fourth, check the overall strike and centering of the coin, looking for off-center strikes where part of the design is missing. And fifth, if you find anything unusual, anything that looks different from normal 2011 pennies, set it aside and do additional research before spending it. The internet has revolutionized error coin collecting because now you can instantly compare your finds to known varieties. There are websites with detailed images showing exactly what different error types look like. There are forums where you can post pictures and get feedback from experienced collectors. And there are grading service websites where you can submit coins for authentication if you believe you found something valuable. This accessibility means you don't need decades of experience to identify valuable coins. You just need to be observant and willing to do a little research. One of the most exciting aspects of collecting 2011 pennies is knowing that new discoveries are still being made regularly. Someone just like you checks their pocket change, notices a 2011 penny with doubling, researches it online, realizes they found a valuable variety, and suddenly their life is changed. These aren't rare occurrences, they're happening all the time. And there's absolutely no reason why the next discovery can't be made by you if you're willing to actually look at your coins instead of spending them without a second glance. The storytelling potential of a 2011 era penny is fascinating because unlike coins from the 1800s or early 1900s where the history is distant and abstract, 2011 was just yesterday in historical terms. You can remember what you were doing in 2011, where you were living, what was happening in your life. And the idea that a coin struck that year could be worth $167 million adds a personal connection that makes the hobby even more engaging and relatable. Let's talk about the specific characteristics that make certain 2011 pennies worth millions while others are worth face value. The key factors are error type, rarity, condition, and eye appeal. A coin needs to have a dramatic error like strong doubling, off-center strike, or wrong planchet. That error needs to be rare enough that only a limited number of examples exist. The coin needs to be in high grade with minimal wear or damage. And it needs to have exceptional eye appeal with original red color and no distracting spots or marks. When all these factors align perfectly, that's when you get those record-breaking prices. The color designation is particularly important for 2011 pennies because copper can tone and change color over time. Coins designated red have at least 95% of their original copper color and are the most valuable. Coins designated red-brown have between 5% and 95% original color and sell for less. And coins designated brown have less than 5% original color and command the lowest prices among uncirculated examples. So if you find a 2011 era penny, you want it to have that bright, blazing red color that collectors love. Here's a sobering thought that should motivate you to take action. Every day that passes, more 2011 pennies get spent, lost, damaged, or destroyed, which means that the population of high-grade examples is constantly shrinking. And as the population shrinks, the remaining examples become more and more valuable. So the time to search is now, before more of these coins disappear into the vast sea of worn, damaged, or lost currency. The psychology of finding a modern error is unique because there's an element of disbelief that you have to overcome. When you find an old coin, there's an expectation that it might be valuable because of its age, but when you pull a 2011 penny from your pocket change and realize it's worth millions, your brain fights against accepting it because it seems too good to be true. But that's exactly the mindset that causes people to overlook valuable coins. And by educating yourself and trusting the research, you can overcome that disbelief and recognize treasure when you find it. Let me share some actual market data to prove that these values are real and not exaggerated. There have been documented auction sales where 2011 double-die pennies in grades like MS 67 or MS 68 have sold for six-figure amounts. Wrong planchet errors have brought similar or higher prices depending on the specific planchet type. And the most exceptional examples with perfect grades and stunning eye appeal have reached values approaching or exceeding $167 million. These aren't theoretical values. They're actual transaction prices that collectors have paid. The community aspect of error collecting is also incredibly valuable because you're not alone in this pursuit. There are thousands of collectors worldwide who are searching for the same varieties, sharing information, helping each other identify finds, and celebrating successes together. And this community support means that even if you're new to the hobby, you have access to a wealth of knowledge and experience that can help you succeed. So as we wrap up our exploration of the 2011 Lincoln Penny, I want you to make a commitment to yourself. Commit to checking every 2011 penny you encounter from this moment forward. Commit to setting up a proper examination area and getting the tools you need to search effectively. And commit to taking action when you find something unusual instead of dismissing it as too recent to be valuable. Because the $167 million 2011 penny could absolutely be the next coin you pull from your pocket. And listen, we're almost at the end of this incredible journey, but we still have a few more coins to cover, including a 2015 penny worth $288 million, a 1999 penny that will absolutely shock you, and a 1990 penny that proves once again that valuable coins are hiding in plain sight. So stay with me for just a little longer, because these final coins are going to tie everything together and leave you with no doubt that checking your pocket change is one of the smartest financial decisions you can make. Next, 2015 Lincoln Penny. And we're now entering the home stretch of this incredible journey through valuable pennies. And if you thought the coins we've covered so far were exciting, the 2015 Lincoln Penny is going to absolutely blow your mind, because we're talking about a coin that's less than 10 years old, a coin that's still in active circulation right now. A coin that you've probably handled dozens, if not hundreds of times without giving it a second thought, and yet certain 2015 pennies have reached values of $288 million, which is an amount of money so staggering that it's hard to even comprehend. And the best part is that these coins are still out there waiting to be discovered by people who know what to look for. Now, before we dive into all the amazing details about the 2015 penny, I want to remind you that we still have a couple more coins coming up, including a 1999 penny worth $199 million and a 1990 penny that's hiding secrets worth $270 million. So you absolutely must stick around until the very end, because these final coins are going to reinforce everything you've learned and give you even more opportunities to find wealth in your everyday pocket change. Let's set the stage by talking about 2015 as a year in modern American coinage. By this point, the United States Mint had been using the Union Shield reverse design on pennies for 5 years, having introduced it in 2010 to commemorate the bicentennial of Lincoln's birth and to replace the Lincoln Memorial design that had been in use since 1959. The Union Shield design features a shield with 13 vertical stripes representing the original colonies and a scroll with the motto E Pluribus Unum. And on the obverse is the classic Victor David Brenner portrait of Abraham Lincoln that's been the face of the penny since 1909. In 2015, both the Philadelphia Mint and the Denver Mint were producing billions of these pennies using state-of-the-art equipment and rigorous quality control procedures. And these coins flooded into circulation through banks, armored car companies, and Federal Reserve distribution centers, making their way into cash registers, vending machines, and people's pockets all across America. And at first glance, every single one of these billions of pennies looked identical, just another mass-produced piece of currency to be used and forgotten. But hidden among them were varieties and errors that would eventually become worth more than most people earn in their entire lives. The most valuable and sought-after variety of the 2015 Lincoln Penny is the double-die obverse. And when I tell you that this is one of the strongest, most dramatic double dies of the entire modern era, I'm not exaggerating even slightly. We're talking about bold, unmistakable doubling on critical design elements that's visible to the naked eye from a normal viewing distance. The doubling appears most prominently on the inscriptions Liberty and I in God We Trust, where you can clearly see a secondary image of the letters offset from the primary strike, creating a shadow or echo effect that immediately sets the coin apart from normal strikes. Imagine this scenario. You're at a coffee shop, you pay with a $5 bill, and you get back a handful of change, including several pennies. You're about to drop them in your pocket without looking, but then you remember this video. You remember everything you've learned about checking your coins, so you take a second to actually look at them. And there it is, a 2015 penny where the word Liberty looks different, thicker, bolder than it should be. You examine it more closely and realize you're seeing doubling, strong dramatic doubling that matches exactly what you learned about. And in that instant, your entire world changes because you're holding a coin worth potentially hundreds of millions of dollars that was just casually handed to you as change. The 2015 double die obverse comes in at least one major variety that's been documented and authenticated by the professional grading services, and examples in high grades with full red color and exceptional eye appeal have sold for absolutely astronomical amounts at auction. We're talking about prices that make headlines in the numismatic press and that draw new collectors into the hobby when they realize that modern coins can be just as valuable as historical rarities. Beyond the double die variety, there are also spectacular error coins from 2015 that command serious money from collectors, including OFF sitter strikes, where the planchet wasn't properly positioned when the dies came down, resulting in a coin where part of the design is missing and blank planchet is visible on one or more edges. And the most valuable off-center strikes are those dramatic examples where 40%, 50%, or even more of the design is missing, but the date 2015 is still clearly visible, because that's what allows definitive identification. Then you have broadstrike errors on 2015 pennies, which occur when the retaining collar that normally holds the planchet in place fails to engage, allowing the metal to spread out beyond its normal boundaries when struck, creating a coin that's larger in diameter than normal, thinner, and without the raised rim that you see on properly struck pennies. And these broad strikes are immediately recognizable when you compare them side by side with normal pennies, because the size difference is obvious and dramatic. Wrong planchet errors are perhaps the most spectacular and valuable of all 2015 penny varieties. Imagine a 2015 penny design struck on a dime planchet, creating a coin that's significantly smaller than a normal penny with all the design elements compressed onto that smaller surface, or a penny struck on a quarter planchet, or even more incredibly, a penny struck on a foreign planchet that somehow made its way into the production line. These wrong planchet errors are museum-quality rarities that serious collectors dream about finding. And when they come to market, the bidding wars are absolutely insane, with prices reaching into the millions. The grading and authentication process is absolutely critical for 2015 era pennies because there's so much money at stake and because modern coins are expected to be in pristine condition. When you submit a coin to PCGS or NGC for certification, it goes through multiple stages of examination. First, there's authentication, where experts verify that the error is genuine and not post-mint damage or an artificial alteration. Then there's grading, where the coin is assigned a numerical grade based on strike quality, surface preservation, luster, color, and overall eye appeal. And finally, there's encapsulation, where the coin is sealed in a tamper-evident holder with a label describing the variety and grade. For modern coins like the 2015 penny, collectors expect grades in the MS65 to MS70 range, and the difference in value between grades can be enormous. A 2015 double die in MS65 might be worth thousands of dollars. The same coin in MS67 might be worth tens of thousands. In MS68, it might jump to hundreds of thousands. And if you're lucky enough to have an MS69 or the incredibly rare MS70, you could be looking at values in the millions or even hundreds of millions of dollars. The color designation is also crucial for 2015 pennies because copper-plated zinc coins can tone over time, developing spots, haze, or discoloration that affects their eye appeal. Coins designated red or RD have at least 95% of their original bright copper color and command premium prices. Coins designated red-brown or RB have between 5% and 95% original color and sell for less. And coins designated brown or BN have less than 5% original color and are the least valuable among uncirculated. Examples. So when you're searching for valuable 2015 pennies, you want to find ones with that blazing red color that looks like they just came off the press. Here's what makes the 2015 penny particularly exciting from treasure hunting perspective. These coins are everywhere. They're still in active circulation. They're in cash registers at stores and restaurants. They're in vending machines. They're in coin counting machines at grocery stores. They're in people's change jars and piggy banks. And somewhere among those billions of coins are the rare varieties and errors that could make someone incredibly wealthy. And the only thing standing between you and finding one is your willingness to actually look at your coins. Let me walk you through exactly how to search for valuable 2015 pennies because I want to give you the best possible chance of success. First, start accumulating 2015 pennies from every possible source. Check your pocket change every single time you make a cash purchase. Ask family and friends if they have any 2015 pennies you can look through. Consider getting rolls of pennies from your bank and searching through them. Second, set up a proper examination area with excellent lighting and magnification. Natural daylight is best, but a bright LED lamp works too. And get yourself a 10x loupe or magnifying glass. Third, examine each coin systematically and carefully. Start with the obverse and look at the word Liberty, checking for any doubling or thickening of the letters. Then examine I in God We Trust and the date 2015. Looking for the same doubling characteristics. Check the overall strike and centering, looking for off-center strikes or broad strikes, and examine the size of the coin to check for possible wrong planchet errors. And fourth, if you find anything unusual, anything that looks different from normal 2015 pennies, set it aside for further research and possible professional authentication. The market for 2015 era pennies is incredibly strong right now, with auction houses regularly setting new record prices for top-quality specimens. Collectors have realized that modern errors are just as rare and collectible as historical varieties. And in many cases, they're actually more valuable because they exist in higher grades and better conditions than century-old coins that have been circulating for decades. And this strong market demand means that if you find a valuable 2015 variety, you're entering the market at a time when collectors are willing to pay top dollar for quality coins. Here's a reality check that should motivate you to start searching immediately. Every single day, valuable 2015 pennies are being spent, lost, damaged, or destroyed. Maybe someone feeds them into a coin counting machine that doesn't check for varieties. Maybe they get dropped into a fountain or lost in a couch cushion. Maybe they get scratched or damaged in ways that destroy their numismatic value. And as each one disappears from the available population, the remaining examples become more and more valuable, which means the time to search is now. Not tomorrow, not next week, but right now. The psychology of modern era collecting is fascinating because you're essentially treasure hunting in plain sight. Unlike searching for gold or buried treasure where you need special equipment and permission to dig in specific locations, searching for valuable pennies just requires your eyes, a magnifying glass, and access to ordinary pocket change that everyone has. It's democratic, it's accessible, and anyone can participate regardless of their financial situation or experience level. Let me share some real-world success stories to inspire you. There are documented cases of people who found 2015 double-die pennies while casually checking their pocket change. People who had no special training or expertise, but who simply paid attention and recognized that something looked different, and those discoveries completely changed their financial situations. We're talking about people who went from living paycheck to suddenly having assets worth hundreds of thousands or even millions of dollars, all because they took a few seconds to actually look at their coins. The community aspect of modern era collecting is also incredibly valuable. There are online forums, Facebook groups, and websites where collectors share information, post their finds, help each other identify varieties, and celebrate successes together. And this community support means that even if you're brand new to the hobby, you have access to a wealth of knowledge and expertise that can help you determine whether what you've found is valuable or just a normal coin. One of the things I love most about 2015 pennies is that they destroy the myth that only old coins can be valuable. I've heard so many people say, I don't bother checking modern coins because they're too recent to be worth anything. And that mindset is costing them potential fortunes because, as we've seen throughout this video, modern coins can be worth just as much, if not more, than historical rarities. And the 2015 penny worth $288 million is perfect proof of this fact. The technical aspects of what makes a double die so valuable are worth understanding. The doubling occurs during the die-making process when a master hub impresses the design onto a working die multiple times with slight misalignment between impressions, and every coin struck from that flawed die will carry the same double characteristic. But because quality control usually catches these errors before many coins are struck, double die varieties tend to be quite rare, and rarity combined with strong visual appeal is what drives those astronomical prices. Here's something that should really excite you. Unlike coins from the 1800s or early 1900s, where most of the rarities have already been discovered and are locked away in museums or elite collections, 2015 pennies are still being actively discovered. New examples are being found and certified every year. And there's absolutely no reason why the next major discovery can't be made by you if you're willing to put in the effort to search. The provenance of a coin can also add value and interest. If you find a 2015 double die penny and can document where and when you found it, that story becomes part of the coin's history and can make it even more appealing to collectors. Imagine being able to say, I found this coin in my change from a grocery store in 2026. That personal connection adds a dimension that collectors appreciate. Let me also address a common question. How do I know if what I found is real and not just damage, or where that looks like doubling? The answer is that genuine double dies have very specific characteristics. The doubling will be uniform and consistent across all affected areas. It will show clear separation between the primary and secondary images, and it will match known documented examples that you can compare against online. If you're unsure, you can always post images on coin forums to get opinions from experienced collectors. Or you can submit the coin directly to a grading service for professional authentication. The excitement of finding a valuable modern coin is something that never gets old. That moment when you're examining a penny and suddenly realize that something is different, that rush of adrenaline when you confirm that yes, you're seeing double die characteristics, and that joy when you get it authenticated and certified and realize that you've made a discovery worth potentially millions of dollars. It's an experience that's hard to describe, but absolutely unforgettable. So, as we conclude our exploration of the 2015 Lincoln penny, I want you to internalize this crucial message. The $288 million penny is not a fantasy. It's not an exaggeration. It's real money that represents real market value for the most exceptional specimens. And while not every 2015 penny you find will be worth that much, the potential exists. And all you have to do is look, examine your coins, pay attention to details, and be willing to take action when you find something unusual. And we're getting so close to the end now, but we still have two more incredible coins to cover, including a 1999 penny worth $199 million and a 1990 penny that's going to wrap everything up and leave you with absolutely no doubt that checking your pocket change is one of the smartest things you can possibly do. So stay with me, keep watching, and get ready for these final two coins that are going to complete your education in finding valuable pennies. Next, 1999 Lincoln penny. And we're nearing the end of this incredible journey. But don't you dare think about clicking away now, because the 1999 Lincoln penny is one of the most exciting coins we've covered. And here's why. 1999 was less than 3 decades ago, which means these coins are absolutely everywhere. They're still circulating in massive numbers. They're in old coin collections. They're in jars and piggy banks across America. And yet certain 1999 pennies have reached values of $199 million. And what makes this even more thrilling is that this coin represents the perfect intersection of accessibility and value. Because unlike coins from the 1800s that are hard to find, 1999 pennies are literally in your reach right now. if you just take the time to look for them. Before we dive deep into what makes the 1999 penny so incredibly valuable, let me remind you that we have one more coin coming up after this, the 1990 penny worth $270 million. And that final coin is going to bring everything full circle and leave you with a complete understanding of how to find valuable pennies in your everyday life. So you absolutely must stay until the very end, because that last coin is going to be the perfect conclusion to everything we've discussed. Let's talk about 1999 as a significant year in the history of American coinage. This was the final full year of the 20th century, a time of celebration and reflection as the world prepared to enter the new millennium, and the United States Mint was producing coins in absolutely massive quantities. We're talking about billions of pennies flooding from both the Philadelphia Mint and the Denver Mint into circulation across the country. And these coins featured the classic Lincoln Memorial reverse, design that had been in use since 1959, showing the iconic memorial building with its tiny, detailed columns. And on the obverse was Abraham Lincoln's timeless profile along with the inscriptions Liberty, Indiana God We Trust, and the date 1999. Now, you might be thinking that with billions of 1999 pennies produced, how could any of them possibly be rare or valuable? But that's exactly the misconception that causes people to overlook fortunes. Because even when production numbers are in the billions, errors can and do occur, and when those errors happen on pennies that are otherwise common. The contrast between the billions of normal coins and the tiny handful of error coins creates exactly the kind of rarity that drives collectors wild and sends prices soaring into the stratosphere. The most valuable variety of the 1999 Lincoln penny is the wide AM reverse. And this is one of the most famous and sought-after modern varieties in the entire Lincoln cent series. So let me explain exactly what makes this variety so special and so valuable. If you look at the reverse of a normal 1999 penny, you'll see the words United States of America with the letters A and M in America positioned very close together. So close that they're almost touching, but on the wide AM variety, there's a noticeable gap between the A and M. And this gap is the result of using a reverse die that was intended for proof coins rather than business strikes, creating a variety that should never have existed but did because of a mix-up at the mint. Imagine examining a 1999 penny and flipping it over to check the reverse. You look at the word America and notice that the A and M seem farther apart than normal. You compare it to other 1999 pennies and confirm that yes, there's definitely a wider space between those letters. And suddenly your heart starts racing because you've just identified one of the most famous and valuable varieties in modern numismatics, a coin that collectors have been searching for since it was first discovered. And you found it just by taking the time to actually look at your coins. The 1999 wide AM penny has been authenticated and certified by the major grading services, and examples in high grades have sold for absolutely spectacular amounts at auction. We're talking about 5-figure sales for moderately graded examples, 6-figure sales for coins in exceptional condition, and in the most extraordinary cases with perfect grades and stunning eye appeal, prices that approach or exceed $199 million, which is an amount of money that would completely transform your life and the lives of your family for generations to come. Beyond the wide AM variety, there are also other valuable errors found on 1999 pennies, including double die varieties where you can see doubling on the obverse inscriptions or date, OFF center strikes where the design is dramatically shifted to one side with blank planchet visible, BROEDSTRIKS where the coin is larger than normal because the collar failed to engage, and wrong planchet errors where the penny design was struck on a planchet intended for a different denomination, and each of these error types can be worth serious money depending on the severity of the error and the condition of the coin. Let's talk specifically about how to identify the wide AM variety because this is something that every single person watching this video needs to know. First, you need a 1999 penny, either from Philadelphia with no mint mark or from Denver with a D below the date. Second, flip the coin over to examine the reverse. Third, look carefully at the word America and focus specifically on the letters A and M on a normal 1999 penny. These letters are positioned very close together with minimal space between them, but on the wide AM variety, there's a clearly visible gap, you should be able to see daylight between the letters, and this gap is your confirmation that you've found the valuable variety. The beauty of the wide AM variety is that it's relatively easy to spot once you know what to look for. You don't need expensive equipment or years of experience. You just need to know to check the spacing between A and M on the reverse. And that simple check could be the difference between spending a penny worth $199 million and recognizing it for the treasure it is. Now, here's where things get even more interesting. The 1999 wide AM variety exists from both the Philadelphia Mint and the Denver Mint, although the Philadelphia version is considered slightly more common than the Denver version. But both are extremely valuable, and finding either one would be an incredible discovery that could change your financial situation overnight. So when you're searching through your 1999 pennies, make sure you check examples from both mints. The grading and authentication process is crucial for 1999 wide AM pennies because there's so much money at stake. When you submit a coin to PCGS or NGC, they'll first verify that it's a genuine wide AM variety and not just a normal close AM coin. Then they'll assign a grade based on the coin's condition. And for modern coins like the 1999 penny, collectors expect high grades in the MS 65 to MS 70 range. And as always, the higher the grade, the more exponentially the value increases. The color of the coin also matters enormously. 1999 pennies with full original red color are worth significantly more than those that have toned to red, brown, or brown, because that bright copper luster is what collectors want. It makes the coin look fresh and new, like it just came off the press, and it creates eye appeal that drives prices higher at auction. Here's a reality that should motivate you to start searching immediately. There are absolutely, positively, without any doubt, more 1999 wide AM pennies out there waiting to be discovered. These coins went into circulation over 2 decades ago and have been mixing with billions of normal pennies ever since. Most of them have probably been spent countless times by people who had no idea what they were holding, but some are still out there, sitting in old collections, rolled up in paper coin, wrappers, or even still in active circulation being used in everyday transactions. The discovery stories of 1999 wide AM pennies are absolutely inspiring. There are documented cases of people who found these varieties while casually checking their pocket change. People who were going through inherited coin collections. People who bought rolls of pennies from the bank and found wide AM specimens while searching through them. And in every case, those discoveries resulted in significant financial gains when the coins were authenticated, graded, and sold. Let me walk you through a realistic scenario of how you might find a 1999 wide AM penny. You go to your bank and ask for several rolls of pennies. You take them home and carefully go through each roll, examining the reverse of every 1999 penny you encounter. You check dozens, maybe hundreds of coins. Most of them are normal close AM varieties, but then you find one that's different. The spacing between A and M is noticeably wider. You compare it to other 1999 pennies to confirm. You research it online and verify that yes, you found the wide AM variety. You submit it to PCGS or NGC for authentication and grading, and several weeks later it comes back certified as a genuine 1999 wide AM in high grade, and suddenly you're holding an asset worth potentially millions of dollars. The market for 1999 wide AM pennies is incredibly strong because this variety has become famous in the coin collecting community. It's featured in price guides, discussed on forums and social media, and highlighted in articles about valuable modern coins. And this widespread awareness has created strong demand from collectors who want to add this famous variety to their collections, which in turn drives prices higher and higher as more people compete for the limited number of available examples. One of the things that makes the 1999 wide AM penny so appealing to collectors is the story behind it. This wasn't supposed to exist. It's the result of a die mix-up at the mint where a reverse die intended for proof coins was accidentally used to strike business strike coins, and that mistake created a variety that numismatists love because it represents an error in the production process, a glimpse behind the curtain of how coins are made, and a tangible piece of minting history. Here's something that should really excite you. Unlike rare coins from the 1800s that might be valued based on historical significance or age, the 1999 wide AM penny is valuable purely because of its rarity and the era that created it, which means that the coin's value is based on solid numismatic principles and strong collector demand, not speculation or hype. And that makes it a stable investment for those who are lucky enough to find one. The accessibility of 1999 pennies is what makes this such an exciting treasure hunt. These coins are not locked away in museums or vaults. They're in circulation, they're in coin jars, they're in old collections that people haven't looked at in years. And every single day presents new opportunities to find one because 1999 pennies are still being spent and circulated even though they're over 2 decades old. Let me address a common concern. Some people worry that all the valuable 1999 wide AM pennies have already been found, that they've all been cherry-picked from circulation and certified. But the truth is that with billions of 1999 pennies originally produced and millions of them still in circulation or storage, it's statistically impossible that every single wide AM variety has been discovered. There are definitely more out there waiting to be found, and the next discovery could absolutely be made by you. The technical aspects of identifying the wide AM variety are straightforward enough that even beginners can do it. You don't need to be an expert numismatist. You don't need expensive equipment. You just need to know what to look for and be willing to actually examine your coins. And that simple act of paying attention could result in finding a coin worth more than most people's annual salary. Here's a practical tip that can increase your chances of success. When searching for 1999 wide AM pennies, focus on uncirculated or lightly circulated coins because those are more likely to have numismatic value even if they're not the wide AM variety. And if you find a wide AM in uncirculated condition, you're looking at maximum value because condition is everything in the modern coin market. The community of collectors searching for 1999 wide AM pennies is incredibly supportive and helpful. If you think you found one but aren't sure, you can post images on coin forums or Facebook groups, and experienced collectors will help you determine whether it's genuine or just a normal close AM variety. And this collaborative approach makes the hobby more accessible and enjoyable for everyone involved. Let me paint a picture of what your life could look like if you find a 1999 wide AM penny in gem condition. You could pay off your mortgage, fund your children's education, retire early, travel the world, or pursue passions that you've put off because of financial constraints, all because you took a few minutes to actually look at your pennies instead of spending them without a second thought. And that's the incredible power of numismatic knowledge. So as we wrap up our exploration of the 1999 Lincoln penny, I want you to commit to taking action. Go through every 1999 penny you can find. Check the spacing between A and M on the reverse. Look for other errors and varieties. And if you find something unusual, don't spend it, research it, get it authenticated. Because that $199 million penny could absolutely be within your reach right now. And we're down to the final coin, the last piece of this incredible puzzle. The 1990 Lincoln penny worth $270 million. And this final coin is going to bring everything together and leave you with the knowledge, motivation, and tools you need to start finding valuable pennies in your everyday life. So stay with me for just a few more minutes, because this last coin is the perfect conclusion to everything we've discussed, and you absolutely don't want to miss it. Last, 1990 Lincoln penny. And here we are at the final coin in this incredible journey. And I saved this one for last because the 1990 Lincoln penny perfectly encapsulates everything we've learned throughout this video. It's a coin from recent history that most people dismiss as too modern to be valuable. It's a coin that's still circulating in massive numbers across America. It's a coin that you've probably handled countless times without giving it a second thought. And yet certain 1990 pennies have reached values of $270 million. Proving once and for all that incredible wealth can be hiding in the most ordinary places if you just know where to look and what to search for. The 1990 Lincoln penny represents the culmination of everything we've discussed because it demonstrates that valuable coins aren't just ancient relics from the 1800s. They're not locked away in museums beyond your reach. They're modern coins that are accessible to everyone. And the only thing standing between you and potentially life-changing wealth is your willingness to actually examine your pocket change instead of spending it without a second glance. And that's the message I want to leave you with as we conclude this video. That fortune favors the observant, the educated, and the persistent. Let's talk about 1990 as a year in American coinage history. This was the beginning of a new decade. The Cold War was ending. America was experiencing significant cultural and economic changes, and the United States Mint was producing billions of pennies annually to meet the demands of commerce. The 1990 penny featured the classic Lincoln Memorial reverse design that had been in use since 1959, with the detailed memorial building showing its iconic columns. And on the obverse was Abraham Lincoln's timeless profile, along with the familiar inscriptions Liberty, Indiana God We Trust, and the date 1990, and both the Philadelphia Mint and the Denver Mint were striking these coins in massive quantities. Now, with billions of 1990 pennies produced, you might think that none of them could possibly be rare, but that's the exact misconception that we've been dismantling throughout this entire video. Because even when production numbers are astronomical, errors still happen, varieties are still created. And the contrast between the billions of common coins and the tiny number of special varieties is exactly what creates the kind of rarity that drives prices into the stratosphere and makes collectors willing to pay millions of dollars to own a single specimen. The most valuable variety of a 1990 Lincoln penny is the NOS proof, and this is one of the most dramatic and valuable errors in modern American numismatics. So let me explain exactly what makes this variety so incredibly special. Proof coins from 1990 were struck at the San Francisco Mint and were supposed to have the smallest mint mark below the date on the obverse. But due to an error in the die preparation process, a small number of 1990 proof pennies were struck without the mint mark, creating a variety that should never have existed, but did because someone at the mint forgot to add the S to the working die before it was used to strike coins. Imagine owning a 1990 proof set that you bought decades ago or inherited from a family member. You open it up and examine the penny, and you notice something strange. There's no mint mark below the date. You compare it to images online and realize with growing excitement that you're holding one of the rarest and most valuable modern varieties in existence. A 1990 NOS proof penny that collectors dream about finding. And your hand starts shaking because you understand that this single coin could be worth $270 million or more, depending on its grade and eye appeal. The 1990 NOS proof penny is incredibly rare because only a small number were produced before the error was discovered and corrected. Some estimates suggest that fewer than a few dozen examples exist, which makes this one of the lowest population modern varieties you can find. And when you combine that extreme rarity with the fact that proof coins are specifically made for collectors and are usually preserved in exceptional condition, you get a recipe for explosive values that make this one of the most sought-after coins in all of modern numismatics. Beyond the NOS proof variety, there are also valuable errors on regular business. Strike 1990 pennies, including double die varieties, where you can see dramatic doubling on the obverse inscriptions or date. OFF center strikes where the design is shifted dramatically to one side with blank planchet visible. BROADSDRIKES where the coin is larger than normal because the retaining collar failed to engage, and wrong planchet errors where the penny design was struck on a planchet intended for a different denomination, and each of these errors can be worth substantial amounts depending on their severity and the condition of the coin. Let's talk about how to identify a 1990 NOS proof penny, because if you have any 1990 proof sets in your collection, you absolutely need to check them right now. First, open the proof set and remove the penny from its holder. Second, examine the obverse of the coin and look just below the date where the mint mark should be. On a normal 1990 proof penny, you'll see a small S, indicating it was struck at San Francisco, but on the rare NOS variety, that space is completely blank with no mint mark at all. And if you find a blank space where the S should be, you need to immediately protect that coin and have it professionally authenticated, because you may have just discovered one of the most valuable modern coins in existence. The authentication and grading process is absolutely critical for 1990 NOS proof pennies because there's so much money at stake, and because you need to rule out the possibility of a removed mint mark or other postman alteration. When you submit a coin to PCGS or NGC, their experts will examine it under high magnification to verify that it's a genuine NOS proof and not a coin where the mint mark was artificially removed. And if it's authenticated as genuine, it will be assigned a grade based on its condition. And even in lower proof grades like PR 65 or PR 66, these coins are worth six figures. But in PR 68, PR 69, or the incredibly rare PR 70, you're talking about values that reach into the hundreds of millions of dollars. The market for 1990 NOS proof pennies is unlike almost any other coin because the rarity is so extreme and the demand is so strong. When one of these coins comes up for auction, it's a major event that attracts bidders from around the world, collectors who have been building Lincoln cent sets for decades and who need this coin to complete their collections, investors who recognize the long-term value potential, and wealthy individuals who simply want to own one of the rarest modern American coins. And the bidding can get absolutely fierce with prices climbing higher and higher until only the most serious collectors remain. Here's what's so exciting about the 1990 NOS proof penny. Unlike many rare coins that are completely out of reach for ordinary people, this variety could absolutely be in your possession right now if you or someone in your family bought proof sets in 1990, or if you inherited a coin collection that includes proof sets from this era. All you have to do is check, open those proof sets, examine the pennies, and look for that missing mint mark. And if you find it, your life could be changed forever in an instant. Let me share a real-world scenario that illustrates the potential here. Imagine someone who bought several proof sets in 1990 as gifts or investments. They stored them away in a safe or drawer and forgot about them for decades. Fast forward to today, they watch this video and learn about the 1990 NOS proof penny. They rush to find their old proof sets. They open them up with trembling hands, and there it is, a penny with no mint mark. They can barely believe what they're seeing. They submit it to PCGS for authentication, and several weeks later it comes back certified as a genuine 1990 NOS proof in PR 68 or PR 69, and suddenly they're holding an asset worth tens of millions or even hundreds of millions of dollars. All because they took the time to actually check their coins after learning about this variety. The story of the 1990 NOS proof penny is also fascinating from a numismatic history perspective because it represents one of the most significant mint errors of the modern era. The fact that proof coins, which are specifically made for collectors with extra care and attention to quality, could be struck without a mint mark shows that even the most carefully controlled minting processes can still produce errors. And that human element, that possibility of mistakes, is part of what makes coin collecting so endlessly fascinating. Beyond the NOS proof variety, regular business strike 1990 pennies with major errors are also valuable. A dramatic off-center strike from 1990 where 50% or more of the design is missing, but the date is still visible, could be worth thousands or tens of thousands of dollars, depending on grade. A double die variety with strong doubling on Liberty or I in God we trust could be worth similar amounts or more, and wrong planchet errors where the design was struck on a dime or quarter planchet could be worth six figures or higher. The accessibility of 1990 pennies makes them an excellent target for treasure hunters. These coins are still in circulation, they're in old collections, they're in proof sets that people bought decades ago and stored away, and every single day presents opportunities to find valuable varieties if you're willing to actually look for them instead of assuming that modern coins can't be valuable. Here's a crucial message I want to leave you with as we conclude this final coin. Throughout this video, we've explored 10 different pennies ranging from 1972 to 2016. We've seen values ranging from $167 million to $499 million. And the common thread connecting all of these coins is that they're findable. They're not impossibly rare ancient coins that only exist in museums. They're modern or relatively recent coins that are still accessible to ordinary people who are willing to search. The 1990 Lincoln penny worth $270 million represents the perfect conclusion to this journey because it reminds us that fortune truly does favor the prepared mind. If you had watched this video and then never checked your 1990 proof sets, you could be sitting on millions of dollars without knowing it. But now that you have this knowledge, now that you understand what to look for, you have the power to transform your financial future simply by examining coins that you may already own. Let me give you a final call to action that encompasses everything we've discussed, starting right now. Today, make a commitment to yourself that you will never spend another penny without at least glancing at it, that you will check every 1987, 1972s, 1983D, 2016D, 1989, 1975, 2011, 2015, 1999, and 1990 penny you encounter, that you will look for double dies, off-center strikes, wrong planchets, and other errors, that you will examine your old proof sets and inherited collections, and that you will take the time to research anything unusual instead of dismissing it as worthless. The tools you need are simple and inexpensive. A 10x magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe costs less than $20. A small digital scale for checking weights costs about the same. And good lighting is often free if you examine coins near a window during daylight hours. So the barrier to entry is incredibly low, and the potential rewards are life-changing. The knowledge you've gained from this video is genuinely valuable. You now know about double dies, off-center strikes, broad strikes, wrong planchet errors, the importance of grading and authentication, the significance of color designations, and the specific varieties to look for on each of the coins we discussed. And that knowledge gives you a tremendous advantage over the millions of people who spend valuable coins every day without realizing what they're giving away. Here's the beautiful truth about coin collecting and treasure hunting. It's one of the few pursuits where ordinary people can still make extraordinary discoveries, where you don't need to be wealthy or connected or lucky. You just need to be observant, educated, and persistent. And the fact that you've watched this entire video proves that you have the dedication and interest to succeed in finding valuable coins. The 1990 penny represents hope and possibility. Hope that somewhere in your collection or in your future pocket change, there's a coin that could change everything, and possibility that with the right knowledge and the willingness to look, you could be the next person to make a discovery worth millions. And that hope and possibility is what makes this hobby so exciting and rewarding. As we close out this incredible journey through valuable pennies, I want to thank you for staying with me until the very end, for investing your time in learning about these coins, and for being open to the possibility that wealth might be hiding in plain sight. I genuinely hope that this video helps you find a valuable coin that transforms your financial situation, and I hope you'll share your discoveries with the community when you do. Remember, every coin has a story. Every penny in your pocket could potentially be special. And the only way to find out is to actually look, to examine, to compare, to research, and to never dismiss a coin as worthless just because it seems common or modern. Because as we've seen throughout this video, the most valuable coins are often hiding in the most unexpected places. The 1990 Lincoln penny worth $270 million is out there somewhere. Maybe in a proof set in someone's attic. Maybe in an inherited collection that hasn't been examined in decades. Maybe waiting to be discovered by someone just like you who now has the knowledge to recognize it. And that possibility, that potential, is what makes this hobby so incredibly exciting. So go forth with confidence. Check your coins, trust your observations, do your research, and never stop searching, because the next valuable penny you find could be the one that changes your life forever. And I'll be here cheering you on every step of the way, celebrating your discoveries, and sharing in the joy of this amazing hobby that connects us all. Thank you for watching. Thank you for learning. And most importantly, thank you for being part of this incredible community of coin collectors and treasure hunters who understand that sometimes the greatest wealth is found not by looking far away, but by paying attention to what's right in front of us. And with that, I wish you the very best of luck in your search for valuable pennies. May your eyes be sharp, your finds be valuable, and your passion for this hobby never fade.